Good evening, friends. Good evening, friends. Welcome to the next technical session, virtual coaching classes organized by Board of Studies, ICAI. Paper 8, final level, indirect taxes. Today's topic for our discussion is on assessment. In addition to that, inspection, search, seizure, and arrest. When you read these topics, sounds like a big, what do you call, big funda, which is beyond your imagination, beyond your thought process. More technical. Today's session continue with another two sessions. It's more of theory. I would say this is one area which you people feel that, sir, I don't understand why, what is there in this particular area. But I would put it this way. Listen to me. You focus on listening to the concept I explain, and I'll take you through. This is one fantastic area which is very less people have focus or practice in when they get into the post qualification practice. Friends, you name any of the top five practitioners in any city you belong to, there are hardly one person who is comfortable, who is good in this area called assessment, audit, inspection, search, seizure. Especially in income tax, when you listen to the term called search, seizure, and arrest, you can count on fingers how many people are there who practice in this area. So, with what is there in store for you to take from this learning, this particular topic, I will put it this way. Don't read it for your exam purpose. Read it for your career. Try to understand it as a point of platform which you alone are there to expertise in. Sir, filing of returns, getting the registration, getting the departmental audit. Now, this is something which majority of the professionals do. But getting the things managed with the inspection, pre-inspection, post-inspection, the dealing with the matters which are concerned with the search and seizure, and also handling matters in relation to arrest. These are couple of areas where very few people are hands-on experience or practice per se. Now, I would say take away from today's learning, you will get at least the basic fundamentals where the assessee tries to play around with the government, where the government has the expert team to have a eagle's eye on catching hold of those taxpayers who run away without payment of taxes. So with this small backdrop and the introduction, friends, let us start with our discussion for today's session. As usual, when we start our discussion, I'll take you through a couple of relevant definitions for making you to understand what is relevant for today's topic of interest. I'll give you a couple of examples as we walk through the various topics for making you have a better experience and exposure of these areas concerned. We will understand what sort of assessment is there at each stage of assessment, what is the responsibility of a taxpayer and what is the responsibility of you as a professional to support the assessee concern. Inspection. In the process of inspection, what are the powers vested with the government officers? How the procedure involved when there is an inspection activity carried out by the GST officers. So friends, just to make you more comfortable, I'll put it this way. It is always important when you watch these good old movies where there is a investigation activity involved. There is a lot of efforts placed by the thief to make a plan, to make a blueprint, to make a design, to have a team set up, to arrange infrastructure, and finally goes for looting the particular bank or any other aspect. Now, this all aspect is one side. The other side is your the detective, the investigating officer, the gentleman who happens to have a idea how things go wrong, where things can go wrong, where there is a leakage of evidence, where there is a way to find out the error or a crime which has come into picture. As a professional, I would teach you which are indicators. Like as an auditor, when the moment you get qualified, you will get into a platform where you as a professional do the audit of assessee. Not that 100% of the assessee are fictitious or assessees who do a fraudulent activity, but out of the acumen, out of the knowledge, out of the talent we gain in the 3 years of articleship, supplemented with this knowledge of writing the examination, we will be gained up with the basic fundamentals which are good enough for us to go travel in the same line how this particular no inspection happens, how the officer detects that something is fishy or something is wrong. Inspection is one such fantastic area. And to just give you a background, if you look at the department, if you look at the government offices, there are smart officers, there are intelligent officers, there are officers who have been trained, who have been selected and trained only for inspection, search, and seizure. Now, take it from me, this set of area which we are going to discuss today called inspection, search, seizure. These are the three areas where you, being a qualified chartered accountant, you can think of getting into expertise either from the government side or from the trade to facilitate the interested party. Now, you can argue from the genuine necessity how this particular contemplation of the government officer is not correct, establishing that there is an evasion of tax. At the same time, from the government point of view, how best you can put your talent to say some things went wrong where this search and seizure is must to dig out the issue. Now, looking into a written called GSTR 3B, looking into a written called annual return, looking into financial statements. Now, these are the statements, these are the evidences which would be available with you. In addition to this, walkthrough of the business premises. I don't know how many of you have did this audit called stock audit. This did the audit of fixed assets. Now, this is one area which helps you to get into a core practice of taxation. And from having understood this particular inspection, search, and seizure, we move into another area called arrest under GST. Now, this is one very sensitive area, arrest under GST. There could be a possibility, there could be a mechanism where a smallest to smallest mistake happened, which was not noted, which was not identified, may put an assessee into a trouble position wherein the provisions under GST for the purpose of arrest can be invoked. This is one of the extreme and important provisions, not as a examination point of view, rather as an audit point of view, I would recommend you to focus upon. I repeat, these are the areas, arrest under GST are very sensitive and very, very important areas which we have to keep an eye. Assuming that someone lends their name for a company for the purpose of registration, you don't know what all aspects are happening in a registration, how these provisions of arrest under GST can be invoked for the purpose of violation. I'll give you a simple example here. When we are talking about arrest under GST, assuming that there is an entity which did some fictitious, which did some sham transactions. When we do the audit of financial statements, you have studied something called fictitious transactions. Sham transactions means there was no actual business transaction per se. The receipt of goods, the supply of goods, receipt of services, supply of services. Everything is a window dressing in my financial statements. Having done this professional course, they get the expert urge of unearthing these areas. One example you can say there is a company which is having a turnover of say 200 crores. Now, when you look into the turnover, it's having 200 crores. When you look into the manpower, salary cost, it's hardly say 50 lakhs. You can make something out of it saying that, look, is this company into manufacturing activity? Is this a company into service related activity? What could go wrong? What may be an indicator saying that this is not a healthy financials? The turnover, what you're reporting, the purchases, what you're reporting, the profitability, what you're reporting, it's alarming something to a professional the moment you look into your financials. So, friends, these are a couple of areas which I felt let us have for today's discussion. I will put my energy, I'll put my efforts to make you understand all these concepts from practical perspective. If someone is really interested to make a practice which is sound enough, which is unique, which is not not generally practiced, I would say today's one session is going to help you in that particular line. So with this backdrop, friends, let us get into our discussion for today. Now, to start with the first definition called assessment. Assessment. Now, when we talk about this term called assessment, income tax or indirect tax, the term assessment, slightly there is a difference in terms of interpretation, in terms of its application. When I talk about this term assessment, my GST law says this term assessment means determination of a tax liability under this act, and this includes self-assessment. Now, assessment is a process where I determine a tax liability. Now, when you are determining a tax liability, it is indicating that you are going to identify the tax payable. Now, how do I pay tax? Why do I pay tax? We have read various other provisions. We read the provisions in relation to time of supply. We read the provisions in relation to valuation. We read the provisions in relation to availment of input tax credit. Now, friends, when I get registered under GST law, I move in from regular registration to say composition. I opt out of registration, then what happens to my closing stock? So there are various provisions where my liability to pay tax gets triggered. So they say assessment means it's a process where a determination of tax liability happens. Now, how does it happen? First mode through self-assessment. First mode through self-assessment. What is a self-assessment? As the name goes, self, individually or independently, assessment is carried out. Now, who does this assessment? Self-assessment. When I say self-assessment, take example of a private limited company. In relation to a private limited company, a return has to be filed for the month of January 2021. When a return is filed for the month of January 2021, can I say that the tax payable in that particular return has been identified by the accountant on the basis of inputs provided by the accountant, which was provided to the chartered accountant for the purpose of filing of returns. When we say self-assessment, does it mean the assessment of tax carried out by the accountant, by the chartered accountant, or by the company per se? This we need to understand that self-assessment is an assessment done by the person who is registered. In case of a private limited company, the private limited company is a person. Definition of a person, it includes individual, HUF, BOI, AOP, partnership firm, LLP, a company, private or public, then a trust. Now, these are all aspects which we need to keep in mind. These are all aspects which we need to keep in mind in relation to self-assessment. My self-assessment is a process where a person who is registered under GST law, a person who is a taxable person, has assessed his tax. I hope you are able to see my screen. You are able to hear me. Let me just check if there are any issues. Yeah. Okay. Now, self-assessment, as the name indicates, it is the assessment of tax assessed by the person who is registered under GST law. Reassessment. Reassessment is a process where examination of the tax paid is done again by the department. Now, reassessment is a process where the assessment of tax payable or paid is reassessed by the government authority concerned. Provisional assessment. Now, what is the difference between self-assessment, reassessment? Self-assessment, I have assessed my tax. I have filed my return. I have assessed my tax liability and have paid my taxes. Reassessment. Let me come to my Excel file to bring you the difference between self-assessment and reassessment. Students, hope you are able to see my Excel file. Please confirm. Hope you are able to see my Excel file. We have something called self-assessment, reassessment. Now, when I say self-assessment, tax availment, tax payable, I would say, availment of input tax, determination of output tax, eligibility of input tax, net tax payable, tax paid. Now, these are all aspects done by the person. I repeat, these are the aspects which are done by the person registered. Now, accountant, chartered accountant, professional, expert, all these are the people who have supported the entity. Now, when the returns are filed, please keep in mind the person who is registered is the person responsible for the complaints. So, in case of an artificial person, in case of a natural person, proprietor, they are the people responsible. In case of a partnership firm, the partners who operate the firm are responsible. In case of a artificial person, the persons who represent that artificial person, who run the day-to-day operations, are the persons responsible along with the person. So in case of a company, along with the company, the director in charge, the manager in charge, or the officer in charge, those are the people equally responsible for the complaints per se. So in case of self-assessment, my availment of input tax credit, determination of what is the tax payable. When you say determination of tax, tax payable on outward supply, tax payable on reverse charge mechanism. Now, this is something which I determine on my suo motu basis. Eligibility of input tax. Out of the total credit I have availed, how much is the credit I am eligible? Under section 17, section 17, subsection 5, there is a credits which is ineligible, there is a credits which are eligible. Net tax payable. I'll try to determine what is my input tax credit, what is my output tax credit, debit my credit ledger, debit my cash ledger, and pay the tax payable. So this is all done by a registered person. This is all done by the registered person. In case of reassessment, same activities are done. I repeat, in case of reassessment, all these activities are done. And these activities are done by a proper officer on need basis. Now, self-assessment I do on a monthly or periodical basis. I would say monthly or quarterly. Whatever is my periodicity, I do self-assessment tax on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis. This is my self-assessment. This is my self-assessment done on a periodical basis. Now, this is an assessment, reassessment done on need basis. So friends, self-assessment, it is done on a regular basis for all various aspects. Reassessment is done by the government officer on need basis. Let me come back to my presentation. Next, provisional assessment. Provisional assessment. Now, provisional assessment is a process. Provisional assessment is a process where determination of tax payable is done on a provisional basis. As the name goes, as the general common sense speaks out, it's a provisional. It's not final. It is not actual. It's a illumination. It's a illuminous. It's a fictitious. It is assumptive, but it is not actual. Why do you have a provisional assessment? A scenario or transaction, I being a registered person, I don't know how do I pay tax. Now that is the point in time where I go in for provisional assessment. Summary assessment. Summary assessment is one of the peculiar assessment, one of the, I would say, acumen of the officer concerned, where he says he requests the higher authority who is in the rank of additional commissioner or joint commissioner. Generally, an officer who is having a rank of assistant commissioner or a deputy commissioner will seek for passing a summary assessment. Now, this summary assessment is a special activity where the officer in charge, the government officer, has a sixth sense or as a indicator, has a news which comes to know in the process of regular audit, where he feels that this assessee, there is a need for calling for a summary assessment. I'll give you an example. Say the government officer does an activity of a particular assessee. In the process of doing that particular assessee's audit, the proper officer calls for purchase register. When the purchase register is gone through, when he runs through, he'll pick some suppliers. He picks some suppliers for verification of bills. When he's verifying those bills, he found that there is some anomaly. There is some sort of confusion in the goods or services supplied by that particular supplier. Why so? Maybe one bill, it says the goods are supplied from location A. In another bill, he says the goods are supplied from location B. In one case, he has charged GST. In another case, he has given a bill which is not printed, which is handwritten. There is a indicator to the assessee, to the assessing officer, that this particular assessee, something is fishy. Something is fishy. Let that be thoroughly analyzed. That is a point in time where my summary assessment is called for. Next aspect called best judgment assessment. Best judgment assessment. Now we will say most of the time in audit, best judgment sample. When you are reading your auditing material, when someone asks you to pick sample, say the principal says, Raman or Geeta or Vivek, please go and do this audit of this particular client, where they have business transactions or purchases worth 10 crores in a particular month. Now, when you have been assigned with this job, you try to do a best judgment sampling, and then you pick a sample. Now, in this case, when you say best judgment assessment, the assessing authority, that means to say the proper officer under GST law. So who is the proper officer? The officer who has been appointed by a commissioner. The officer who has been appointed by a commissioner to examine the transactions, to examine the compliances. So that person will be called as a proper officer. A proper officer who does not have any information, who does not have any data, he has to apply his best judgment for the purpose of determining what is the tax payable. So when does this best judgment comes into picture? This term best judgment comes into picture. Best judgment comes into picture where the person who has obtained a registration, he has filed returns for the period say April 2020 till September 2020. From October 2020 onwards, the dealer stopped filing the returns. When the dealer stops filing returns, the officer will send a notice. But it is not possible for all the officers to go and verify the premises of all the registered persons for the practical reason. Now, when you look from the department, when you look from the government point of view, every state has been bifurcated into zones based on the pin codes, based on the city. Now, every officer, like we have something called jurisdictional range office. Every range office, on an average, will have 200 to 500 assessees registered. I repeat, one range if you pick, on an average, 200 to 500 registrations are available. So imagine one assistant commissioner having average 300 registrations. Every month, this gentleman cannot cover all the 300 premises for paucity of time, for paucity of the other activities he has to carry out. Now, that is a point in time where this officer says, I have a dashboard like you have MIS, Management Information System. The government officer gets the data from the GSTN portal. Look, in your jurisdiction, these are the 300 assessees registered. Out of 300, these are the 60 assessees who have not filed their returns for 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, 1 month. The moment he gets the data that these assessees have not filed the returns, this gentleman sends a reminder. Look, you have registered under the law. You have to file your returns on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. We notice that you haven't filed your return on a monthly basis. He will give a reminder. After giving a reminder, he will wait for 45 days. And then he will see, in spite of sending a reminder, the other registered person who supposed to file a return, he didn't react it, he didn't respond it. Then this best judgment provision will be invoked where the officer concerned, he has to use the information which he has got. So what is the information he has got? 1. Returns filed for last 3 months. 2. E-way bill generated either by that registered person or someone on his behalf. 3. GSTR 1 filed by the supplier of that particular registered person. Friends, please keep in mind, you have to look at the subject practically the way it is working as of today. I wouldn't say please prepare for your exam. Keep in mind today's discussion, I'm not going to talk from your examination point of view. I'll see how best you can enrich yourself in terms of knowledge which is required for you once you get qualified and get into the industry, get into practice. Now, take it from me, this is one promising area from your career point of view, provided you pick up in a right sense. Now, best judgment, there is the information from e-way bill portal. There's the information from GSTR1 uploaded. There's the information from returns filed by you for the last 3 months or 6 months. These are the 3 information. Also, in addition to that, the officer may call for the bank statement of the registered person. There's one provision where call for statistics, call for information. Based on various evidences, based on various facts available by the assessing officer, he may call for best judgment. Friends, these are the various assessments what we have as of today under GST law. Starting with self-assessment, reassessment done by the government officer, provisional assessment where you as a registered person are not in a position to determine what tax you have to pay, summary assessment where the officer has a suspicious things noted in relation to a registered person. Then you have your best judgment assessment. These are a couple of assessments which are there in your syllabus. These are the couple of judgments which are there in your assessments which are there in your syllabus. Moving on to next definition called proper officer. Proper officer in relation to Any function which is to be performed under this act means a commissioner or officer of central tax assigned that function by the commissioner. So please keep in mind, a commissioner or any officer appointed on behalf of commissioner by the commissioner shall be called as proper officer. We use this term called proper officer across today's discussion. Sir, who can be there in charge called proper officer? Inspector, superintendent, assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner, joint commissioner, additional commissioner, commissioner. Now, these are all set of people who have been appointed by the commissioner to be called as proper officer for various activities to be performed. Now, next aspect. Now, this is one definition. Examination. Expect a 3 marks definition, a 3 marks theory question. Please explain the term audit under GST law. Now, this is one extreme question which you can expect in your final for 3 marks, 3 theory question. My GST law defines the term audit. Audit means examination of records. Now, audit, can it be done by the assessee, he himself, person, he himself? If the assessee, if the person, he himself does the audit, then there will be a compromise in such an audit. So always audit is done by a party, by a person other than the registered person who does the complaints. So audit means examination of records, examination of returns and other documents maintained or furnished by the registered person. Now they say, first and foremost, they examine what the records. In the last to last class, we have discussed section 35, rule 56. We have discussed various records to be maintained. Production register, inward register, outward register, tax ITC, input tax register, output tax register. Then you have something called your advances. You have receipt voucher, refund voucher, your self-tax invoice. These are all aspects together I call as records. Returns. Now when I file my return, there are various workings which are forming part of returns. I rely upon those documents or records which help me to file my returns. And other documents which help me in determining what is my tax payable. Maintained or furnished by the registered person. So here, as a registered person, section 35, read with rule 56, there are records and registers to be maintained. That is something which they are talking about. For what they are maintained under this act or rules made thereunder or any other law for timing in force. Example, I being a registered person, say I'm a proprietor. I have to file my income tax return when I have a taxable income exceeding the threshold limit. I have to get my books of accounts audited, assuming I cover under the clutches of 44EB mandatory audit. I get my books of accounts audited not as a proprietor, assuming I am a registered person as a private limited company. I get my books of accounts audited for the purpose of ROC. Assuming I am a person called society, I maintain my books of accounts as per the Societies Act in the state prevalent. I get the books of accounts audited under the Societies Act under the relevant provisions of the state. Or assuming I am a person under the clutches, under the supervision, under the guidance of central government or state government or a local authority, I have been directed to maintain a set of books of accounts for determining the receipts and payments and the statement of affairs to be audited by Comptroller and Auditor General of India, C&AG. Now that is what they are referring to this term called any other law. They say audit means I examine the records, I examine the registers, either maintained under GST law or maintained under any other law for time being in force. Why? To verify the correctness of turnover declared. First and foremost, they say, when you file your returns, when you maintain your records, we wanted to verify the correctness, the accuracy of your turnover. Now, this is the starting point of your reconciliation, the audit. My turnover as per income tax return, my turnover, my transactions as per Form 26 is My turnover as per your audited financials, my turnover as per the returns. They try to understand, they try to examine what is the turnover you have declared. Is this turnover acceptable or can I set aside the turnover? I'll give you one example, friends, here. Please have utmost attention to all other subjects when you are reading one particular area. When you read accounting, please look at the indirect taxation, look at the costing. When you read indirect taxation, look at your auditing and information systems. When you look into your financial statements preparation. Let us look one example over here. When we look into the financial statements, my notes to accounts form part of financial statements. In my notes to accounts, there's one column called money spent in foreign currency, money earned in foreign currency. Under my company's law, under ROC, like as per Schedule 2, when I report my turnover, when I report my transactions of financial statements, as an auditor, the auditor has to report the details of transaction in foreign currency, the inflow of money, outflow of money. Assuming in the notes to accounts, in relation to the borrowings of the company, there was one note saying that during the year, company has borrowed a sum of rupees 3 million. Company has borrowed a sum of rupees 3 million, for which $3 million, for which the parent company has given a bank guarantee. The parent company has given a bank guarantee, not duly reflected in the subsidiary books. Now they are saying, they're giving you information. There is a bank guarantee which is given by a parent company to the sister company in India. Now, I draw your attention, when you read your notes to accounts, there is an information that there is a service, there is a assurity, there is a guarantee given by my parent company to the sister company. When I read my section 7, which deals with supply, when I read my section 7, read with Schedule 1 of GST law. Schedule 1 talks about the activities of goods and services, supply of goods and services without a consideration between the distinct persons. Now here, being a sister company, I don't pay any commission, I don't pay any bank guarantee charges to my parent company. But please keep in mind, there's a receipt of service for a consideration which is in between related party, which was not factored as an expense in my books of accounts. Auditor has brought that point of element in the notes to account saying that, look, this particular entity has borrowed 30 million or 3 million, for which there was a bank guarantee given. The cost of that bank guarantee was not factored in the financial statements. He's trying to bring that fact in the notes to accounts. Now, when I read that particular information, I would say that there is a possibility of tax payable but not paid. It could be a turnover either in the hands of a parent company or a sister company. Now, that is one transaction which comes into a limelight when I read through the financial statements. So, first and foremost, they are reading your accounts to ascertain whether there is a correctness of my turnover. Next is taxes paid. What tax you have to pay, what taxes you have paid. You are ought to pay CGST, SGST, but you have paid IGST. Why? Sir, when I read my section 12, when I read my section 10, when I read my section 11 of IGST law, section 10, 11, 12, 13, there are 4 sections which talks about your place of supply related provisions. When we apply the place of supply provisions, I presume that this particular transaction, CGST, SGST should have been paid. Erroneously, you paid IGST. So they wanted to ascertain your taxes paid. They wanted to ascertain how much refund you have claimed, how much refund you are entitled for. Is this the refund entitled for? What is the input tax credit available in your books of accounts? Now, moving on, they also want to ascertain the accuracy, the correctness of input tax credit availed. When you have taken input tax credit, how much is the input tax you have accounted in your books of accounts? How much is the input tax you have shown in your GSTR 3B? They would like to reconcile your books with your returns. They would like to reconcile your purchases with the ITC availment. Say, my input tax register for the month of January 2021 says my purchases is worth 80 lakhs. But when I come to my financial statements, during the month of Jan 2021, my purchases is only 60 lakhs, 60. Now, you will say My financials, my book says 60 lakhs, 60. My 3B, the annexure ITC register shows 80 lakhs is my purchase. There is a mismatch. You have to reconcile. Why is that there is a gap? Is it that my purchases accounted in the previous months, not shown in the returns? Have I brought those purchases in the current month? Or I have taken credit in my returns, I have forgotten, I have failed to account that purchases in my books. Is it that my internal process is such a way that unless a quality inspection happens, I don't account for the purchase? However, because the goods and services are received for the purpose of GST return, I would like to avail my input tax credit. They are planning, they are determining, they are ascertaining what is the input tax credit you have availed. Finally, to assess the compliance with the provisions of the Act. This fag end is nothing but it's a general ancillary provision. They wanted to ascertain the compliance with the provisions of GST law. So friends, examination, you can expect one theory for 3 marks on the definition called audit. So in nuttention, audit means I have to examine the records, I have to examine the returns or documents. Records which are to be maintained. Based on the records, I file my returns. When I file my returns, there are supporting documents which are there. So these are the 3 documents I examine. When these 3 documents which have to be maintained by the registered person under the GST law or any other law for time being force. Why? I have to verify accuracy of taxes, the turnover, accuracy of taxes, accuracy of any refund during the year you have claimed as a refund, accuracy of input tax credit, and overall compliance. This is how I define my definition called audit under GST law. Now we move on to the first topic called self-assessment under section 59. Self-assessment under section 59. Now, this term self-assessment, as I said initially, this means every registered person shall self-assess what the taxes payable under this act and furnish a return for each tax period as specified under section 39. Now, the term self-assessment is one term which is used in most of your audit related provisions. What they say in my audit, I'll come to my Excel to make you understand this particular self-assessment more precisely. When I talk about self-assessment, they say this self-assessment includes every registered person where he has assessed the taxes payable under this act. And in addition to that, they say furnishing of returns. Friends, I would like to give one important note to you. I want to draw your attention. The presentation which was shared to you, which was hosted on the ICAI website, Board of Studies, couple of, I would say, typographical mistakes were there. As and when I come to the respective slide, I'll bring to your knowledge. Kindly ignore the presentation which is there on the website. Most likely tomorrow that presentation material will be rectified. As of now, please take it from me. This presentation, what I am showing to you, is a rectified one. The presentation which is hosted has got a couple of corrections. Your attention for an examination point of view, don't go blindly with that. Please erase that file. Again, you can log in tomorrow and download the fresh file. Tomorrow evening, you can download the fresh file. Coming back to self-assessment. First, they are saying assessing the taxes payable. Second, furnishing of returns. Now, when they say assessing the taxes payable, this assessment of taxes payable, first determine the turnover. Determine the taxes payable thereof. Determine the purchases on which ITC has to be availed. Examine the ITC eligibility as per section 16, 17, Rule 42, 43. Section 16, Section 17, Rule 42, Rule 43. Now, finally, disclosure of non-GST or exempt supply details. Now, please understand, most of these assessment provisions says, have you taken a due care for disclosure when you are paying your taxes, payment of taxes. I draw your attention to section 49. Now, this is how I correlate my earlier provisions. I try to remember those provisions for better understanding. Now, when I refer to section 49, it talks about payment of taxes. I say this is my turnover, my supply of goods, supply of services. What is domestic within India supply? What is export supply? How much is the supply with payment of tax? How much is the supply without payment of tax? How much is the supply on advances and paying tax? How much is the supply adjustment of advances I am doing? Now, multiple things I try to work out together to find out what is my turnover. At the same time, I also try to identify based on the place of supply what taxes I have to pay. Also, I'll work out what is my eligible input tax credit. I also present to the officer concerned what is the information in relation to non-GST exempt supply. So friends, please keep in mind, I'm working out all the relevant information which I have to fill in my written. So first element I would say, data to be filled in written. Filing of written in timely manner. Now, these are the two principles which is talking about your self-assessment. When you're doing your self-assessment, have you taken adequate care to disclose that data in the returns? Have you filed your returns in a timely manner as required by the law? When I say timely manner, in case if I have defaulted, have you complied with payment of interest or penalty or late fee? This is what they have been talking about in relation to my self-assessment. Let me come back to my presentation. In relation to self-assessment, taxes payable. How do I determine purchases, sales, net of these two, adjustment of advances or advances? I take into consideration all those aspects and furnishing a return. I have to file my return for each tax period. When I say tax period, it could be monthly, it could be quarterly. Under section 39, when I refer to section 39, it says you have to pay your tax when you file your return. My due date for filing of return will happen when I pay my taxes. So I have to pay my tax and then file my return. How do I pay my tax? I determine as per my section 49. Self-assessment includes determination and filing of data. If I fail, if department has a difference of opinion, they'll say, Praveen, you file your return. In your financial statements, there is an income for 40 lakhs. That 40 lakhs you are not brought into your returns. Now that is called failure of self-assessment. Why? If I fail to disclose some data which is there in financial statements but not there in my returns, then I would say it's a failure of self-assessment. If I comply with my self-assessment, the further slides which I'm going to talk to you is going to help us at the time of scrutiny of returns, at the time of demand of taxes. So as of now, please keep in mind, self-assessment includes the computation of taxes payable, disclosure of data in furnishing the return. If you have done, then you have complied with your self-assessment provisions. Question comes here. Sir, what if I have filed my returns? I have noticed that there was something wrong in relation to disclosure of information. Can I say I have failed with self-assessment? Answer would be yes. You have failed to disclose the data what you have to disclose. Either you have excess reported or short reported, where your self-assessment mechanism went for a toss. So can I rectify that? Answer is yes, I can rectify. There are various provisions, various circulars under GST law, which help me to rectify those particular mistakes. Now we move on from self-assessment. We move on to the concept called provisional assessment. Let me see if there are any doubts till now what we have discussed. So far, so good. Okay. Provisional assessment. My section 59 talks about self-assessment. Section 60 talks about your provisional assessment. The taxpayer, the taxable person. Now look at the term they have used, taxable person. Who is a taxable person? Can someone answer? A person who is registered under GST, can I call as taxable person? Or a person ought to be registered but not registered? Whom shall I call as taxable person? I repeat my question. A person who is registered under GST, that person alone is a taxable person, or a person ought to be registered but not registered. Can that person alone be called as taxable person, or a person registered and a person ought to be registered but not registered? 1, 2, 3. Category 1, registered person. Category 2, person ought to be registered but not registered. Category 3, registered person and a person ought to be registered but not registered. Whom do you call as taxable person? Put into the chat window. Let me see your answer. Category 1, Category 2, Category 3. Whom do you call as taxable person? Anjali says both. Yes, Anjali, you are correct. Both the people are called taxable person. They say if there's a taxable person who's unable to determine value of goods or services, determine the rate of tax applicable thereto. There are two scenarios where they say this taxable person is not able to determine the value of goods, not able to determine the value of services. They say is not in a position to identify how much is my value, or I'm not in a position to determine what is the rate of tax applicable. These are two peculiar scenarios. These are the two peculiar scenarios wherein I can go for provisional assessment. I can go for provisional assessment. Now, please keep in mind, these are the only two cases where the assessing, the taxable person can go for provisional assessment. One, value of goods and services are not able to determine. Example. So there is a contract with ISRO. There is a contract with ISRO, or there is a contract with DRDO for supply of goods for a particular rocket launcher. Now, I'm a registered person who is into making a melting of steel scrap. I'm a registered person who is into melting of steel scrap. Now, ISRO, for a particular rocket launcher, they have one small device which is being manufactured. They have appointed me as a job worker. I cannot know how much is the value of goods ISRO is going to accept, is going to reject. My job is whatever steel comes from ISRO, I melt it, I put into a mold, I give it back to ISRO. Now it may be accepted, it may be rejected, because when I think of rocket launcher, every item which I supply, it has to be tested. If it is okay, they'll accept. If it is not okay, they'll reject. Now I'm sending the goods which is being tested at ISRO. Now I cannot say, ISRO, please confirm on a monthly basis. I, being a job worker, I go to the assessing officer and say, my range officer, and say, look, I'm giving a supply of goods. I don't know how much is the value, which may be accepted, which may not be accepted. Every month, you're asking me to file my returns. When I'm doing this activity, I'm not in a position to define what is the value of goods. Similarly, there could be a scenario, rate of tax cannot be determined. So why is that? There is a impracticability to determine the rate of tax. Now this scenario comes practical difficulty in determining the rate of tax. Now I draw your attention to section 8 of GST Act, which talks about composite supply, mixed supply. The point in time when the supply took place, I don't know. It could be a composite supply. It could be a mixed supply. Now, unless the contract gets over, I cannot say what is the nature. So if there is a difficulty for me to identify it's a composite supply or a mixed supply, I go for a provisional assessment. What I will do? I will seek for provisional assessment. Now, in provisional assessment, I file an application with the tax proper officer. For what? For getting a permission for me to pay tax on provisional basis. Like example, what we spoke about your supplies to ISRO. I don't know how much tax I have to pay. I'm requesting the tax officer, please permit me to deposit a tax on provisional basis. When I say provisional, it may be more than actual or it may be less than actual. So I cannot do on self-assessment basis. I have to write a letter to the jurisdictional officer and seek for permission. So my provisional assessment is as good as seeking a permission for me to pay tax on a provisional basis. Such taxable person may request the proper officer. How? In writing, giving the reasons for payment of tax on provisional basis. I'll give a statement of facts. I'll give contracts or documents available, agreements available. I'll give the nature of business. I'll give the nature of payments and receipts involved. I'll give all this information to the range officer or the proper officer who is appointed for looking into my application. So what I'll do, first and foremost, I, being a taxable person, I'll write a letter to the officer concerned saying that, look, these are the facts, these are the statement of facts, these are the contracts, these are the agreements based on which you permit me for what? To pay the tax on provisional basis. Once the application is received, this proper officer, he passes an order within a period of 90 days for such request, allowing me to pay tax on provisional basis or such lesser value. Now, please keep in mind, provisional assessment is just a process where I write a letter within a period of 90 days, I get an approval, I get an order. This is not a final order. I get an order for me to pay the taxes on provisional basis for the value of supply or for the rate of supply. Now, when this provisional assessment is allowed, now this example of me as a job worker supplying goods to ISRO, the government officer does not know that I, end of the project, would pay the tax promptly to the government. For that purpose, the government officer would like to protect the interest of revenue. How? They will first and foremost say, Praveen, you execute a bond. So what do you mean by bond? What do you mean by security? Bond is an undertaking. I write, Gilla Praveen Kumar, registered under GST, so and so having registered place of business. I have requested the assessing officer, the proper officer, to permit me to pay the tax on provisional basis till the actual tax is determined. I, being a registered person, ensure to comply with the law for payment of shortfall, if any, along with the applicable interest. So I'm giving a undertaking by way of a bond. Along with the bond, this proper officer will call for a security. Let me come to my Excel file to make you understand this particular process of bond along with security. Now, bond along with security. Now, when we talk about provisional assessment, they're saying that scenario 1, value of supply cannot be determined. Value of my supply cannot be determined. Value of goods or services cannot be determined. Second, rate of tax cannot be determined. Now, my value, I'll just give you an example. Month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4. For scenario 1, where value is not determined. Say, goods supplied, goods accepted, goods rejected, goods to be billed. Now, every month, I try to make a factual statement of goods supplied. I'll put the value here in, say, rupees in lakhs. Say, I've supplied month 1, 50 lakhs worth. So month 2, 85 lakhs. Month 3, 120 lakhs. Month 4, say another 60 lakhs. Goods are accepted, say 80% in the first month, say 95% in the next month, say 75% in the third month, and 100% in the fourth month. My goods rejected is the differential amount. Now, based on this, I'll get to know that my value to be billed is goods accepted every month. Now, assuming the rate of tax is 18%, assuming IGST, forget for a moment CGST, SGST. Assuming my rate of tax is 18%, on this, I would be paying, I am supposed to pay tax of this every month, right? So this is my 48.73 lakhs is the tax ought to be paid. So here, the proper officer would demand a bond, which is nothing but a general undertaking, and in addition, security up to 25% of the bond. Now, this, how do I calculate 25%? Whatever is the tax exposure is there, on that 25%, maximum 12 lakhs is what? Maximum 12 lakhs is the value, maximum 12 lakhs is the value which can be called as a bank guarantee or as a security. Now, my provisional assessment, whenever I go for provisional assessment, my proper officer would give me a permission to pay the tax on a provisional basis. One, they'll ask you to give you a bond along with a security. My security is maximum up to 25%, of the bond value. This is what we need to understand in respect to provisional assessment. Let me come back to my presentation. Execution of a bond or security. Now, this is a mechanism where they say they'll permit you to pay tax on provisional basis on execution of a bond along with a surety or security, which is maximum 25% of the value which is specified in my bond. Binding on the taxable person for payment of the difference between the amount of tax finally assessed with the provisional assess. Provisionally, officer will say, Praveen, instead of paying say 50 lakhs, you pay 25 lakhs or you pay 30 lakhs. Working capital management. As a professional, look at the working capital management. I am paying monthly on provisional basis 10 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 10 lakhs, some amount. My actual tax liability may be different. Now, what they're saying, you pay 10 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 10 lakhs. In addition to that, up to 25% of the total bond value, you give as a security. This is what they're saying. So you're trying to have an exposure in terms of monthly payment and also in terms of your security. Security, which is by way of a bank guarantee. Now, let me see if there are any questions till now. Okay. Ambika asked a question, what will be the estimated value of bond? Ambika, hope you are clear with the example which I have explained. Value of bond. What example I have explained? The value of bond is, what is the total value of supply? In our example, let me come back to my Excel file. Now, in this example, my total value of supply is, say on this, my total value of tax to be paid is 48 lakhs. So my value of bond will be equivalent to this, which is determined on a final assessment. So my bond value will be maximum to the extent of 48 lakhs. Hope I'm clear with your, I have clarified your doubt, Ambika. Next, coming to final assessment order. So everything is good. You've asked me to go for provisional assessment. I filed an application. Along with the application, I gave all the facts, all the details, contract orders, everything to the officer. My officer asked for a security. Now, what will I do? How long will this happen? This proper officer, he shall pass a final order within a period not exceeding 6 months from the date of the order. That means to say, initially I'll get an order to pay. They will give me an order to pay tax on provisional basis. From that day, 6 months I travel. Within a period of 6 months, month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Within 6 months, I'll get the final assessment order. Means my officer is going to examine the facts, is going to examine the business. On the basis of that, he is going to formulate an equation based on which I have to pay my tax. He will pass the final assessment order after taking into account all your information which is given for. I repeat, within a period of 6 months, my proper officer will communicate to me by way of a final order how much tax you have to pay in relation to that particular supply. Now, so when I'm doing so, it may not be possible that proper officer within a period of 6 months he has to pass an order, but he failed to pass. Then joint commissioner or additional commissioner, they may extend that 6 months by further 6 months. Like example, ONGC. ONGC is getting into a contract of digging beneath the ocean to explore natural gas. Now, sir, setting up the plant of ONGC, that itself will take 2 to 3 years. Then commissioner may extend that period not exceeding 4 years. So please understand, proper officer within 6 months from the date of initial order, he has to pass an order. If he is not able to conclude within 6 months, joint commissioner or additional commissioner may give further 6 months. Sir, it is complicated project, it is not possible. Then commissioner, he'll say maximum within a period of 4 years, you conclude your final assessment. That is what they say. Now, sir, what if final assessment, the tax payable as per final assessment is less than the tax paid under provisional assessment? I mean to say, month on month, I was asked to pay 10 lakh. 5 months, I have paid 50 lakhs. In the Excel file, what you have explained to me, my final assessment tax is only 48 lakhs. I repeat, as per the example what you have given, I'll come to my example, so that it will be easy for you to correlate. Right. Say, my provisional assessment order, when I filed an application, my officer say, Praveen, you pay monthly 10 lakhs. Now, say a monthly 15 lakhs. Let me put it 15 lakhs. My officer asked me to pay monthly 15 lakhs. For 4 months, I paid 60 lakhs. But this is your provisional assessment. Let me write as PA. Final assessment, FA. Sir, I have paid 60 lakhs. My final assessment says 48 lakhs. I have paid more. Now what you have to do? Claim a refund. How? Under section 54. If you recollect 2 sessions prior to this, we had a provision under section 54, subsection 8. Under section 54, which deals with your refund, I am entitled for a refund. Sir, how much is my refund? 60 lakhs I have paid instead of paying 48 lakhs. I am eligible for 11 lakhs as a refund. Sir, can you claim a refund? Answer is a big yes. The day you get your final assessment, they say file an application. For refund. Now, so the moment I file an application, as per the law, within 60 days, I'm entitled to get my money back. Sir, if I don't get that money within a period of 60 days, interest is payable to me at the rate of 6% per annum on my eligibility of refund. Law says, Praveen, you have paid 60 lakhs, final assessment is 48 lakhs, you have paid 11 lakhs excess, you are entitled to claim a refund. How much do I claim a refund? 11 lakhs. The day you file your refund application, from the day, within 60 days, you should get that 11 lakhs back. If the government fails to pay you that 11 lakhs, you are entitled for interest at the rate of 6% per annum. This is a case of my final assessment is less than provisional assessment. Now, let me copy the same example for different scenario. Now, scenario 2, where month on month, my officer asked me to pay 10 lakhs. Instead of 15 lakhs, my proper officer asked me to pay 10 lakhs on a monthly basis. I paid 40 lakhs, but actually final assessment happened to be 48 lakhs. My final assessment is greater than provisional assessment. Can I claim a refund? No, I have to pay tax. Can I claim a refund? I have to pay tax. Pay the differential tax. Sir, should I pay tax alone or interest? Answer is yes. Interest is applicable under section 50. What is the rate of interest? 18% is the rate of interest. 18% is the rate of interest. Sir, is it not unfair on me? Look, I'm not in a position to determine the tax. I've sought the help of the proper officer. On the instruction of proper officer, I paid 10 lakhs. At the final assessment, I know that 48 lakhs was payable, but I had paid only 40 lakhs. Now here they say, don't worry. Examine the monthly position, monthly or quarterly, whatever is applicable for you. Examine the position. In month 1, I paid 10 lakhs. I ought to pay only 7.2 lakhs. So this is excess payment. Now, wherever I have paid excess, I don't pay any interest. Wherever there is a shortfall, month 2, there is a shortfall. Month 3, there is a shortfall. Month 4, there is a shortfall. So what I will do? Shortfall. Now, here, month 2, I will say shortfall plus already excess deposited. So this is my actual shortfall. This is my other shortfall. This is my another shortfall. My total shortfall is 8.735. Now, sir, is it matching? Look at this. I have to pay 8.735 lakhs. This is how 8.735 lakhs has come in. Okay, so what is the due date? Assuming month 1, say October 20th, November 20. Let me add month on month 30 days. Say here I'll add plus 1 day, and here also I'll add 1 day. Now this is my due date. What is my actual date? Means after final assessment. My final assessment was given on, say 20. It was given on 1st Feb 21. On 1st Feb 21, I was given the final assessment order. Assuming the day I received final assessment, I have decided to pay on 28 Feb 21. I have decided to pay on 28 Feb 21 for the shortfall. Then my delay in days would be from 28th Feb till the due date. Let me convert into numbers. For month 1, there is a delay of 70 days. For month 2, there is a delay of 39 days. For month 3, there is a delay of 8 days. So this is a delay. So accordingly, I'll pay interest. How much is interest? I'll apply a formula minus my tax amount into 18%. This is for a period of 365 days. This is for a period of 365 days multiplied by number of days where there is a shortfall. Number of days there is a shortfall. Now, this is my interest which is payable. Friends, keep in mind, this is in lakhs, this is in lakhs. 60,000 for month 1, 12,000 for month 2, and very negligible for month 3. This is my interest payable on provisional assessment. Hope you are clear with provisional assessment where there is a excess payment, provisional assessment where there is a shortfall. In case of a provisional assessment, I'll take into consideration tax was already paid and the actual shortfall alone, I'll pay for the taxes. Let me come back to my presentation. Now, before we go further, let me see the questions. There are no questions as of now. Hope I'm clear with the explanation till now. Tax payable is on differential amount or full amount, provisional tax calculated. There's one more question from Anjali. So tax payable is on differential amount or full amount or provisional tax calculated. Tax is payable, Anjali. If you look into my example, I pay tax on provisional basis. I calculate what is the actual tax payable as per the final assessment. I compare my tax paid under provisional with the tax payable under actual, the Excel file which we have done. When I compare month on month, there could be excess payment, there could be short payment. That is what I'll compare, Anjali. Hope I've clarified your question. Let me know if not clear, Anjali. I'll take back to the example. Now, when I compare provisional with a final order with provisional, if final assessment is less than provisional assessment, I can claim a refund. So vice versa, if I have final assessment more than the provisional assessment, I'll pay the differential amount along with the interest. Now, so having paid that, whatever security I have given, I can call back for the security. The proper officer, okay, before this slide, let me go to the previous slide. Once my assessment is done, whatever security was given, whatever bond was given, I'll write a letter to cancel that particular bond. I also write a letter to call for the security. I call for cancellation of the bank guarantee. This is the entire process which is set for my provisional assessment. Section 60. Scrutiny of returns. Now, this is a regular phenomenon. Not much to discuss here. Scrutiny of returns, what will happen? The proper officer, the moment I file my return, the proper officer will verify my return on the basis of information he has got for ascertaining the actual correctness of the data. In case if there is any discrepancy, the proper officer will write a letter to me saying that, look, you filed your return. There are a couple of discrepancies in your return. I'll go back to my Excel file to make you understand how this scrutiny under section 60 is called for. Section 61. Okay, hope you are able to see my Excel file. Scrutiny under section 61. Now, the reasons or the base, the reason why a scrutiny under section 61 could be called for. Turnover as per GSTR 1, GSTR 3B, e-invoice portal, then say your e-way bill portal. Now, let me put it in rupees in lakhs. Now, so for the month of Jan 2021, turnover as per GSTR 1 is 120, 3B is 125, e-invoice 122, e-way bill 145. Now, sir, can this happen? Please bear in mind, once you get qualified, once you get into the industry, Once you happen to be auditor, all these mistakes you will come across. You will come across. My GSTR 1 says 120 lakhs. My GSTR 3P says 125 lakhs. E-invoice portal says 122 lakhs. E-waybill total says altogether 145 lakhs. For a moment, you put yourself into the shoes of a tax officer. You will say, higher of these two, tax officer, he'll apply a formula called maximum of this, comma, this, comma, this, comma, this. This is what the tax officer says. Gentlemen, I have gone through your returns. You have filed your returns, no doubt in that. I have noticed that you have disclosed a turnover of 125 lakhs. Tax was paid on 125 lakhs in 3B. But I noticed that tax is payable on 145 lakhs. This is how the proper officer will look into your returns and he'll come with a different understanding saying that, look, you should pay this much tax which you have not paid. This is a tax on which you have to pay, but you have not paid. Right? This is how my scrutiny of returns is called for when there is various data available with the proper officer, when he feels that your turnover is incorrect. This is example number 1. Example 2. My ITC as per, say, 3B, GSTR 2A, 2B, e-waybill portal. Now, for a particular month, say Jan 2021, my ITC as per 2B, I'm putting in lakhs, assuming IGST, CGST, SGST all put together. My GSTR 3B says input tax credit of 120 lakhs. My GSTR 2A says input credit of 125 lakhs. GSTR 2B gives a credit of 110 lakhs. E-waybill portal gives only a credit of, say, 50 lakhs. Now, services, goods, supply of goods or services. E-waybill is required only for goods, not for services. The officer wouldn't know that out of 120 lakhs, only 50 lakhs is goods, the rest is services. He may have a suspicion. He may have a element of doubt to call for this particular information. This is how my scrutiny of returns is done under section 61. Scrutiny of returns. Let me come back to my presentation. Scrutiny of returns, proper officer may scrutinize the return and the relevant information, and if he noted any discrepancy, the proper officer may send a notice calling for information for that particular difference. That 30 days may be extended if there is a reason by me as a registered person when I have presented to the proper officer. Before I go further, let me see if there are any doubts. Anjali confirmed it's clear. Okay. Aman says, why is it so unfair that we pay interest to government doesn't match with the government what it pays to us? I do admit Aman has raised one point. When we want to claim a refund, government is paying only 6%. When I have to pay back, I have been asked to pay 18%. Aman is asking, why is that government so unfair to me? They're recovering 12% more than what they have to pay. This is a policy decision, Aman. Unfortunately, yes, we cannot rub on this with the government. Being a policy decision, we have to abide with this, Aman. I don't have answer other than this at this moment. Hope I have answered your question, Aman. Let me go back to my presentation. So, friends, the government says if there is a difference, the officer will send a notice saying that, Praveen, you explain why there is a difference. Now, I being a registered person, I can either accept or reject that particular, differences. The proper officer sent me a notice saying that, Praveen, you have short paid the tax. Praveen, you have taken excess credit. I may say that, sir, yes, your point is correct. I have accepted your contention. So whatever mistake I have done, either I have accepted or I have rejected your contention. You said that this is a tax to pay. I have a choice to either accept or reject. Now, if I have accepted, I have to pay that particular tax within the prescribed time with interest. If I have rejected that contention, then I have to justify with the documents, the facts, what is available with me. I repeat, if I've accepted, I being a registered person have to pay the tax what was demanded or reverse the excess input tax what I have taken. Assuming I have rejected the contention of the officer concerned, then I have to justify. Please keep in mind, you as a professional chartered accountant, your support is there to the assessee where you help them in terms of preparing a reply. This is my turnover as per e-way bill. These are the reasons why this excess turnover has come in e-way. I have to select something as FOC supply. I have to select something other than supply. By mistake, I did this selection. Money. I have to bring all the reasons by virtue of statement of facts with the evidence to substantiate that whatever contention of the officer is there, it cannot be sustainable. Clerical error may happen at my end. Clerical error may happen in the government officer. Clerical error may happen by way of report generation by the officer concerned. Anything may happen. So you have to substantiate when you don't accept with the contention of the officer. Now, when I have given my justification, proper officer may agree, may not agree. If the proper officer is not satisfactory, is not agreeing with my explanation, whatever I have given, then proper officer may take a recourse. Proper officer may take an action. How? He may proceed to conduct under section 65. Now, this is how my provisions of audit, provision of search and seizure comes into picture. Students, please understand how all these things are purporting or calling for audit under 65. Audit under 65, it's an audit done by the government officer concerned. Audit under section 66 is a special audit. A chartered accountant or a cost management accountant can do a special audit under section 66. Or they're not happy with the audit. They feel audit itself is not relevant. Let us go for inspection, search and seizure. Look at the way the things are calling for. Now, when there is a discrepancy in my return, first they may do the audit by themselves. If they feel that they are not capable of doing the audit, then they may call for a special audit. They may call for a special audit by a chartered accountant or a cost accountant. Sir, the cost accountant or chartered accountant are wise enough. They disclose the closing stock of 40 lakhs. They disclose the sales of 20 lakhs. How can there be a purchase of 40 lakhs and the sale of only 20 lakhs? Month on month, if I see, they're buying, for X amount, the sales is only to the extent of 50% of the X amount. That I feel that there is a suspicion. Then they can call for a special audit. Officer concerned says, no, instead of calling for a special audit, let me go for search inspection. I do a verification of the premises. In the process of inspection, I feel that there is a search to be conducted in that premises and other premises. I call for search or seizure under section 67. Now, having that, I've done the search and seizure. Recovery process to be initiated under section 73, 74. Now, my 65, 66, 67, any of these provisions will purport to issue a show cause notice for recovery. Demand cannot happen just because audit done under 65, 66, 67. Please keep in mind, there is a judicial process. There is a judicial process where they will say, I have done the audit. I have noticed that this is a tax to be paid but not paid. They will give an opportunity to the office, the assessee. Then a show cause notice is issued under 73, 74. This is how the demand recovery process starts. So friends, when there is a scrutiny of returns, the officer is not satisfied. He can do audit under 65 himself, or he can call for a special audit under 66, or he himself can make up his mind for inspection, search, and seizure. Now, this is how we get into the main topic of today. This is what my scrutiny of returns talks about. Next is your best judgment, assessment under section 62, best judgment. My best judgment, I'll put it in simple term. Let me not take much time. As I said, there is a registered person who has to pay his tax, but he has not paid tax. Now, the officer will not call for any information. At best, on the basis of records, at best, on the basis of knowledge he has got, at best, the evidences he has collected, he'll determine the tax what he has to pay on the basis of the information he has got with. So this officer will serve a notice saying that, look, gentlemen, you have to file your returns, you have not filed your returns. Because you have not filed your returns, I have given you an opportunity of some time to file your return. Because you have defaulted in filing your returns, what is the return? One is your monthly return, second is your final return. Monthly return, which is you have to pay on a monthly basis or quarterly basis. Final return, when you're calling for suspension of your business, closure of your business, cancellation of your CTP. Now, having given enough time, you have failed to comply with that, then I do the best judgment on the basis of the data available from me and issue an assessment order. Look at the time, within a period of 5 years from the due date of annual return. This is the most draconian authority which is given under the law. They say within a period of 5 years. Sir, you are saying 5 years from the due date of annual return. I'll just show you my Excel to make you understand what is the authority this officer is calling for. Best judgment. For financial year 2017-18, for financial year 2017-18, assuming my due date for annual return is 31st December 2018. 5 years from there, 31st December 23 means on or before 31st December 2023, my proper officer can issue a best judgment order for recovery of tax for a return to be filed but not filed. They are keeping 5 years open. From financial year 18, they are going 5 years. Imagine after 3 years, after 5 years, no one knows what is the return. No one knows where is the data. No one knows where are the books of accounts. This is the fate of this provision under section 62 best judgment. Within a period of 5 years, they're saying that that fellow can issue an assessment order. Now, if at all, if I disagree with this order, there is a time limit of 3 years further to close this matter. Means extended from 3, another 8, altogether 8 years is the point in time. I need to maintain books of accounts. I need to have the data. Whenever they call for assessment, I need to maintain that. This is the fate of my extended section 62. So here, you as a professional will say, file your returns and get away with this non-compliance. Don't get into the aspect of this best judgment assessment. The best part of this best judgment assessment is, assuming you get a notice under this best judgment, you have an opportunity to file a return within a period of 30 days. The moment you receive that best judgment assessment order, the moment you file your return within a period of 30 days, it is deemed that the best judgment order is withdrawn. It is deemed that the best judgment order is withdrawn. That means to say, if any assessee has to file a return but not file, officer has determined a tax liability. I'll come to my Excel file to make you understand. I'll show you my Excel file to make you understand this particular provision. So for the month of September 2017, my actual liability, best judgment liability. Actual liability is 10 lakhs. My best judgment was brought out for 25 lakhs. Now, the moment, assuming this best judgment order was passed on 12th June 2019. Now, within 30 days, on or before 12th July, if I file the return, then this 25 lakhs is deemed to be withdrawn. I confirm. The moment I file the return within period of 30 days, My demand under section 62, is deemed to be dropped to the extent of 25 lakhs what that officer has raised for. So this is the beauty of section 62. If you respond, how you file your return. So if I don't file return, you have a mightiness of the officer to demand for the tax what was demanded. You don't have any other rescue. This is my section 62. Next, section 63, assessment of unregistered person. This is the area where I draw your attention to the smart officers, the vigilance officers who are there in the department who call for this assessment of a person unregistered, to be registered but not registered. Okay, there's one question from Venkat. Venkat says, explain the tax under e-invoice and e-way bill in detail. Okay, I'll come to that, Venkat. I'll explain you that point. Let me go back to my Excel file. Venkat has asked this tax under e-invoice, tax under e-way bill. This is what Venkat wanted to understand. For the benefit of other students who have less exposure in indirect taxation, I'll make you through this way. So when I talk about e-invoice, Venkat and others, when I talk about e-invoice, as of today, for B2B transaction, for exports transaction, for B2C transaction, I have to prepare e-invoice. I repeat, only for B2B exports, sorry, not B2C, it is SEZ. When I, as a registered person, make a supply of B2B, make a supply of exports, make a SEZ supply, I am bound to raise a e-invoice. So in this example, e-invoice portal says 122 lakhs. 122 lakhs e-invoice says. E-way bill says 145 lakhs. What could be the reason? I could have B2B, I could have exports, I could have SEZ. In addition to that, Venkat, I could have B2C transactions. Now, B2C transactions are not reported in e-invoice. That could be one reason. That could be one reason why e-way bill is higher than my e-invoice. This is one reason, Venkat, for you to understand. Hope I've clarified your doubt, man. Let me go back to my presentation. Now, assessment of unregistered person. This is the point I was talking about, the smartness of the vigilance officer. The entire core brains in the government office works in vigilance where they assess a person who ought to be registered but not registered. This law says under section 63, where a taxable person fails to obtain a registration even though is liable to do so, or registration has been cancelled under section 29, but who was liable to pay tax. Now I take these two things this way. First, let me do the annotation. Now, first aspect, it says a taxable person fails to obtain a registration. You see any of these wholesale markets, you go to these wholesale markets where only cash is collected. No swiping machine, no Paytm, no check. You go to a wholesale shop, electrical applications or household applications. In Chennai, there is something called Mode Market. In Chennai, there is something called Shokarpet. Like, don't blame me, don't mistake me. I'm just giving an example. In Mumbai, we have this Chor Bazaar. In Delhi, we have this Chor Bazaar. In Karnataka, we have something called this SP Road or this small Pete. These are all areas which is well known. As a buyer, I know when I go to that particular area, I get the branded product, maybe genuine or ingenuine, but I'll get it for lesser price. Those are the places where this vigilance says where a taxable person has to register but not register. Now the officer he is making that person get registered under the law. That is first example. Second example, where my registration has been cancelled under section 29. So why is that registration cancelled under section 29? Registration is cancelled. You have contravened. You have not complied with the e-way provisions. You have conducted yourself. You have participated in a fraudulent activity. Because you have deviated a couple of things, Section 29 says the officer will cancel your registration. You have to file your returns but not filed. You have to pay the tax but not paid. You have supplied the goods without an invoice. You have supplied the goods without e-way bill. You have stored the goods without a registration, or you have perpetrated yourself in a fraudulent activity. Because of various reasons, I cancel your registration. But you're liable to pay tax. Though your registration is cancelled, you're supposed to pay tax but not pay. Then the proper officer may proceed. He may proceed to assess what is the tax to be paid but not paid. And to the best of his judgment, now this is a painful activity, this is a painful job. This assessment under unregistered person is on the basis of best of his judgment for the relevant tax periods. So the proper officer, based on the evidences available, to the whims and fancies of his knowledge, he may pass an order. He may pass an order to. He may pass an order within a period of 5 years from the date of filing of annual return to pay that particular tax on that particular person where taxes ought to be paid but not paid. When he passes an order, there will be a natural justice. Opportunity of being heard will be provided to that particular person. That's my section 63. Section 64, summary assessment. Now, this summary assessment is a case where my officer in charge, Venkat, hope I have clarified your doubt, ma'am. Summary assessment under section 64 is a process where the officer in charge has a reason to believe, has an evidence to say that there is a tax to be paid but not paid. Then that officer, with the prior permission of an additional commissioner or joint commissioner, look at the cadre here. They say a proper officer with the prior permission of a additional commissioner or a joint commissioner, not below this level, he may proceed to assess the tax liability. He may proceed to assess what is the tax liability, what is the tax to be payable but not paid, along with the interest. And that gentleman will issue an order where he has a sufficient grounds to believe. Now, this is the thing, friends, I would draw your attention as a professional, read in between the lines. Once you get into the practice of taxation, sky is the limit based on your acumen. You have a very good platform when you can do a justice to your assessee with the presence of mind, when you can read a notice, when you can fight a case. Many of the cases will get squashed when the proper officer has issued a notice without taking the cognizance of the law provisions, how it should be drafted. When the officer has issued a notice, has issued an order, a grounds to believe, he has to bring the facts into the order. What is the facts he has got to believe that this particular summary assessment has been called for? Like Venkat asked one doubt, so what is the difference between e-invoice and e-way bill? When the e-way bill says 145 lakhs, when e-invoice is 122 lakhs or 125 lakhs, my officer has to bring that fact into the assessment order saying that for that particular month of Jan 2021, your e-way bill portal says your supply of 145 lakhs, but in your GSTI 3B, you showed a turnover of 120 lakhs. That is a gap which I have identified for issuing the summary assessment order. If this fact was not brought in, that is a fantastic case for us to say this assessment order, summary assessment, has no base, has no authenticity under the law for calling for the tax payment. The person, where the taxable person to whom this liability has been ascertained, and that particular person, when he files an application, before that, this particular assessment order, when it is served, I have a choice to accept or I have a choice to fight for. Now, this is the point, this is a slide where I would like to draw your attention, where I was saying the best of the best brains work in the department, where the taxable person whom the liability pertains is not ascertainable. I draw your attention where the officer has visited a warehouse, he has visited a godown. The owner in charge of that particular godown, the in charge of the goods is not ascertainable. I repeat, there is a possibility that the taxable person means the owner of that goods is not ascertainable. So why is that? It's all your what do you call fraudulent activity or your smuggled goods. The goods have been brought from customs by some unknown route. You have stored those goods in a warehouse. The owner of the goods is not ascertainable. Then the law says the person in charge of such goods shall be held as the person liable to pay that tax. So wherever there is an inspection, wherever there is a vigilance, wherever there is a verification of goods, where the ownership is not ascertainable, that point in time, the person who's in charge of those goods could be a truck driver, could be a lorry person, could be a warehouse owner, could be a godown in charge. That person shall be held as a taxable person. That person shall be held as a taxable person. So this taxable person will be served with a notice under summary assessment, section 64, where he will be held liable to pay the tax along with the interest. So this is my summary assessment under section 64. Finest provision. Now, as a registered person, when I file an application saying that sir, these are the facts of the case, based on which whatever you have presumed that there is a tax evasion is actually not a tax evasion, then the officer can withdraw that particular summary order, or the additional commissioner, joint commissioner, suo moto, if they notice that erroneously this was served on an assessee who is not supposed to be served with that particular order, they will call back that particular summary assessment. Next, audit by tax authorities. Now, examination, please expect one theory question for 4 marks. One theory question for 4 marks from this particular topic called audit by tax authorities. Let me see if there are any questions posted till now. There's one question from Venkat. Best judgment assessment can be ordered by a proper officer only in case not filed. Yes, Venkat. Best judgment in case of non-filing of returns. Best judgment in case of your summary assessment. I repeat, best judgment in case of non-filing of returns, and also in case of this scrutiny assessment, where he can do a best judgment because there is no invoice. When the goods are smuggled and kept in a place, Venkat, when he is not having a tax invoice, he doesn't know what is the transaction value, what is the duty paid. That is again a point in time. Officer invokes best judgment for issuing this scrutiny assessment. Hope I've clarified your point. Coming back, tax audit by tax authorities. Now, this is a audit which is generally a notice is given by the government officer saying that look, you have been registered in the tax this particular jurisdiction. You have filed your returns. We would like to call for assessment for this particular determination of your returns, whether taxes ought to be paid properly, whether the input tax credit to be have been availed. I'll come to my Excel file to make you better understanding before I come to this particular slide. Let me come back to my Excel file. Audit under section 65. Now, please keep in mind, my income tax, my indirect tax, both are different. Income tax audit is always for an assessment year, for a previous year. My indirect tax law audit could be for a tax period, that is month, for a quarter, for a fortnight, for a 6 months, for 1 year, or a mix of a period from 1 year to another year. There is no compulsion that audit under 65 should be for a specific financial year or assessment year. In fact, assessment year is not a concept available here. Should be for a financial year. There is no compulsion that it should be for a specific financial year. Let me strike to that so that you will have a yeah. Please keep in mind, there's no compulsion that it should be for a specific financial year. Income tax, it is for a financial year. Audit under GST law could be for any period. Verification for turnover disclosed. taxes paid, input tax availed, input tax utilized, availability of evidence, that is books of account and records. Then finally, compliance with other GST provisions. My officer who conducts the audit has all these portfolio as a audit plan. He has a portfolio as an audit plan for the purpose of verification of the assessee's business. Now, this is what happens in case of an audit. Now, this officer has no specific period. He'll come for an audit. He will verify my turnover. He will verify what taxes are paid. He will verify what is the ITC you have availed. Out of that, how much you have utilized. What is the supporting documents for tax invoice, for input tax credit availed, for advances received, for receipt voucher, payment voucher, self-tax invoice, then maintenance of your registers, additional place of business, various provisions are there which will be clubbed together for the conducting of this audit under this GST law. Let me come back to my presentation. So this particular proper officer may conduct the audit at the business premises of the registered person or in their office. Now, income tax, now everything is faceless. Under my GST law, this audit may be conducted at the place of business of the assessee or at the register of the person or in the office of my government office. So this can happen. Then the registered person shall be informed by way of a notice 15 days prior to conduct of the audit. 15 days prior to conduct of the audit. Generally, like we have audit planning, what we do in our regular course of time, they also have a checklist. They also have profile, assessee profile, desk review, then audit plan, intimation for audit, what is the documents required, all this, whatever we do, same thing is applicable for the tax officers concerned per se. I'll go through important aspects for your examination point of view. Now, once the audit is commenced, within a period of 3 months, the audit should be conducted. If the audit is not possible to conduct within a period of 3 months, let me do the annotation. Yeah. Once the audit has been commenced, it should be completed within a period of 3 months. This is a deadline. If there is a reason why this audit cannot be conducted within a period of 3 months, then my commissioner, if he is believing that this audit team should be given an additional period of time, then this officer will be given additional 3 months. You have given 3 months, they'll give further 3 months to be recorded in writing where he has to conduct the audit. It is not possible to conduct within a period of 3 months, then they'll be given an extended period further, not exceeding 6 months. So maximum, first is 3 months they have given the time. You are not in a position to conduct within three months, then the commissioner may extend that period by a further period not exceeding 6 months. So that 3 months is extended by 3 months, which is not overall exceeding 6 months. For the purpose of this now examination, I was telling you one important aspect. This definition of audit could be tested for 3 marks. Let me draw your attention to this particular explanation. I've given 5 stars. At least 3 marks question can be expected on the basis of this term called explanation. I'll read the explanation. I'll bring that clarity on this explanation. For the purpose of this section, that is under section 65, commencement of audit shall mean the date on which records and other documents called for by the tax authorities are made available by the registered person or the actual institution of audit at the place of business, whichever is later. Now, what do you mean by commencement of audit? This commencement of audit means, you say, within 3 months, the audit should be completed. Sir, I'm not in a position to complete audit within the given period of 3 months. Then, having noted the reasons, There could be extended period not exceeding 6 months. The commissioner may extend the period by a further period not exceeding 6 months. So maximum within a period of 6 months, you have to complete the audit. Now, when I am calculating the 3 months, when I am calculating 6 months, please keep in mind from the day I commence the audit, my 3 months or that 6 months gets calculated. So what do you mean by commencement of audit? As a registered person, the day when all the records and registers or the documents which were called for audit were given. Sir, I have commenced my internal audit. I've asked for sales register. They gave only 1 month sale register out of 3 months. Now, unless you give the 2 month sale register, how can I close my audit? Same lines, commencement of audit under GST law means when all the records and registers which were called for were given by the register person. When the audit is happening at the department or the actual institution of audit at the place of business means they came and sat in my registered premises and they started the audit. So if I go to the place of my department officer, whatever information they have called in the checklist, what they have given, the moment I give those documents, then my commencement of audit starts from that point in time. In the checklist, they have given 15 points. When I given the data for all those 15 points, that is the day where commencement of audit happens. Until I give, sir, I gave all 14 points, 15 point I gave only on August. My audit started in January. In the month of August, I'm giving the 15 point. Then August from there, 3 months gets calculated. Where I go to the registered, the departmental premises. Rather, if the officer is coming to my premises, the day when started the audit in my premises, within 3 months, they need to close out their audit. This is one theory question which you can expect for 3 marks from your examination. What do you mean by audit? What do you mean by commencement of audit under GST law? Wait and watch for this question in your examination. During the course of this audit, the officer may call for support. Please provide these documents. Please provide this support in terms of verification. You gave a balance sheet. In balance sheet, you give the GL dump of foreign exchange earned, foreign exchange incurred, or money spent in foreign currency. They'll ask for some support to give the data for further information which was provided. Then, once the audit is over, within a period of 30 days, the officer in charge will communicate what all records verified. These are the findings, these are the obligations, these are the audit obligations which you have found. This audit is conducted by way of, when the audit is concluded, there could be a possibility that they have identified tax to be paid but not paid, or short payment of tax, irregular availment of credit. Then there will be a communication. Auditor, the department auditor, which issues something called audit memo. Audit memo is nothing but a summary of audit findings. Assessee may agree, may not agree. If assessee agrees and pays the tax with interest, the audit is concluded. The assessee does not agree, then the recovery provisions under section 73 or 74 get started. I repeat, once the audit is concluded, this proper officer, within a period of 30 days, he will communicate to the registered person, where the audit is conducted. These are the list of audit paras. This list of audit paras, whether you agree or whether you disagree. The moment you agree, pay the tax with interest. Audit is concluded. You don't agree, officer will make a recording of that and he will communicate to the jurisdiction officer to initiate a recovery provisions under 73, 74. So what is the importance of this 73, 74? Issuance of a show cause notice. The 73, 74 will call for issuance of a show cause notice. My notice under GST law gets started with 73 or 74. This is the importance what we need to understand from the audit by the authority concerned. Then we move on to special audit. Special audit, now this I will quickly make you understand. This is a process where a officer not below the rank of an assistant commissioner, this gentleman believes that he is not in a position to accurately to determine the turnover, to determine the taxes to be payable, to determine the input tax credit element. Then he'll seek a help of a professional called chartered accountant or a cost accountant. Now, this is done with the prior approval of a commissioner. So this assistant commissioner writes a letter to commissioner saying that, Commissioner, for this assessee, we believe that something is wrong. Reason, his records are incomplete. We see that his purchase is so much, but his supply is so much. Why is that he is not paying taxes in full in cash ledger? Why is that every month his purchase is higher than the sales? So we would like to have an expert called a chartered accountant, a cost accountant. Let him conduct a fresh audit on behalf of the department. Commissioner, then he will take the call to appoint a chartered accountant or a cost accountant. Once a chartered accountant or cost accountant has been appointed, these professionals should conduct the audit and give a report to the commissioner, to the assistant commissioner within a period of 90 days. Now, if they're not in a position to conclude the audit within a period of 90 days, that period of 90 days can be extended for a further period of 90 days. Total 90 plus 90, 180 days. They say you as a professional conduct the audit within a period of 90 days and give a report. Sir, I have been doing audit, but the assessor is not cooperating. Assessor is not giving the information which is called for. Please give us additional time. So after recording the reasons which was given by the professional, the chartered accountant or cost accountant, they will give further period of 90 days. In totality, 180 days is given for conclusion of this particular audit. Important point under special audit. This chartered accountant or cost accountant, when they have audited the particular assessee, this auditor has identified that the assessee has to pay tax on X turnover, but he has paid a tax on Y turnover. This provision says the books of accounts which are relied upon by the assessee shall be kept aside. The books of accounts, income tax return, tax audit report, statutory audit report, whatever reports this registered person has relied upon, that report, those evidences shall be set aside, and the fresh audit conducted by the chartered accountant or cost accountant shall be relied upon for the purpose of determining this particular tax. I draw your attention. You as a professional, what is the scope you have? What is the opportunity you can find? Wherever there is an audit, wherever there is a fraud, wherever institute wants to lay the hands of a professional to unearth the things went wrong, like Punjab National Bank or any other bank, a lot of cooperative banks, there is a fraud which is being unearthed. That is a point in time. The erstwhile auditors will be set aside. You will be appointed as an auditor to unearth and to identify the actual turnover, actual income, actual expense. That is what they say here also. Earlier relied upon books of accounts will be set aside, and what the chartered accountant or cost accountant have redrafted, that shall alone be considered. And before taking that as a final conclusion, an opportunity of being heard will be given to the assessee, and then the order will be confirmed. And in relation to this professional who have been appointed, the chartered accountant, cost accountant, their professional fee will be paid by the commissioner. Now, once an audit is conducted under section 66, there is no auto recovery. A notice under 73-74 should be issued by the adjudicating authority. A show cause notice has to be issued. Now, friends, till now, this is only audit, special audit or audit by the department we have understood. Now, we will move on to the next important aspect of today's discussion called inspection, search, seizure. Inspection, search, seizure. Let me see if there are any doubts till now. There are no further doubts till now, whatever we have discussed. I'll come back to my inspection, search, seizure. Now, this is one area. I would say a lot of scope is there for professionals. Reason, Very less people have a specialization in this area called inspection, search, and seizure. Let us start understanding this. A proper officer, not below the rank of a joint commissioner. He has a reasons to believe that a taxable person has a taxable person has suppressed suppression, fraud, willful misstatement, misrepresentation. Now, this comes under the category of your fraudulent activity, suppression. I can use suppression for fraud, willful misstatement, or misrepresentation of facts. A taxable person has suppressed what? Any transaction relating to supply. Any transaction. There's a concealment of facts. There's a facts which are hidden. There's a transaction on which a supply of goods or services has taken place. I have to pay tax but not paid. I have not disclosed the transaction itself. Or there's a suppression of stock. There's a suppression of stock. Sir, how? Why? I've been registered as a regular assessee. I've been migrating from registration from composition to say regular. I've been declaring a stock which is suppressed. But I've been moving from regular registration to composition. Again, there is a suppression. I've been calling for cancellation. I've showed less stock compared to what should be stored. Or he has claimed input tax credit in excess of his entitlement. Or he has indulged in contravention of any of the provisions. This is a bigger contravention. Now, I'll take you through one by one, how this is possible. Let me come to my Excel file to make you understand with this particular uh, confiscation and search seizure. Students, please keep in mind, we are working in an electronic era. Now, you have a thought process. You can think to the extent possible where all the government officer can travel in terms of doing this investigation, inquiry, etc. In the electronic era of reporting, when you see what is the source of data, what is the source of data? One, returns filed by the supplier. Two, e-way bill report. Three, e-invoice report. Four, my what you call bank statements. Fifth, IceGate portal, which is your customs portal. Six, your income tax return. Now, please understand, your scope as a professional is wide largen when you think that this, when I do a particular activity, when I do a particular audit, this is all the scope with which I have to keep in mind before I conclude my filing of returns or payment of taxes. I have to ensure that my books of accounts are reconciled duly from all these angles. Only then we have done a best support for the client concerned as a professional. First is returns filed by the supplier. I have no access to what all details my supplier has furnished. But this is one data which comes and sits in my GSTR 2A or 2B. My GSTR 2A or 2B shows what all supplies happened from my supplier. Assuming that I pay to my supplier in cash, don't think that government officer doesn't know. My 2A and 2B is going to reveal the value of purchases. Next is your e-way bill report. Your movement of goods on account of delivery challan, on account of invoice, on account of bill of supply. All these aspects can be tracked by your officer. E-way bill can be prepared by you as a registered person. E-way bill can be prepared by other person. While movement of goods, I will get to know when I have issued e-way bill. When my supplier has raised the e-way bill, that itself is a track for identifying what is the volume of purchases. E-invoice. Now, this is one extreme move from the department where they're capturing your business data. I draw your attention to something called data analytics, data mining. Students who are listening to me, you focus specialized in your information systems audit. Sky is the limit in terms of data analytics and data mining. Reason, this is the next future. This is the next future for your career. Department has got investment in these two tools for analyzing your e-invoice report, where entire your business data is going to get captured. I have name of the customer, nature of goods or services, the rate of the line wise goods, HSN number, quantity, rate per unit, discount, rate, nature of tax. Now imagine a store called, I'll give an example called, say, Reliance Mart. Reliance Mart. Who are people supplying the goods to Reliance Mart? Invoice wise, they give information. I'll give an example of, say, Patanjali. Patanjali has supplied their product called Patanjali honey to Reliance Mart. Patanjali honey, when they raise an invoice, they'll say, look, I'm going to supply 1,000 bottles of honey of per unit 120 rupees to Reliance. When Reliance files their return called supply, sale, B2B, B2C. B2B will be recorded in e-invoice portal. B2C is not recorded. Out of 1,000 bottles, if I report, say 100 is my closing stock, who Reliance is saying, the balance 900 is a consumption. They will ask, show me how that 900 units got consumed, which all months they are consuming. Please understand, this is some data which is available with the department once everything is brought under electronic mechanism of reporting. Next is your bank statements. Money deposited, money spent. Now, people, you would have seen the income tax latest 26 AAs, where my bank statement transactions are picked up in my income tax statement. That is how even the data mining is done by the department. Next is my customs portal. What is the volume of goods you have imported? From which nation you have imported? Which nation you have exported? What is the activity you have been doing? Are you supplying the goods free of cost? Are you supplying the goods with payment of tax? Entire data is there from ICAI portal. That data they'll compare with your GST portal. In GST portal, in GST return, how much you have showed as export in a particular month. Say you have exported for 50 lakhs through GST R3B. My customs portal, all the shipping bills for that month, does it tally with 50 lakhs? Does it have 60 lakhs? Does it have 40 lakhs? Now they are going to integrate and say you have reported exports of 50 lakhs, but your shipping bills show only 40 lakhs. Shipping bills show 60 lakhs. Look, there is a gap. This is how my benefit of doubt is visualized by the departmental officer. Finally, income tax returns. Comparing of the turnover as per my GST returns, comparing of turnover as per my income tax returns. You have one form called Form 26A, where TDS is deducted by my customer on the payment or accounting basis. Whether or not the money was paid, whether or not bill was issued by you, the moment TDS credit is there, the government office is going to ask you, why didn't you raise invoice? If you are not raised invoice, how did your customer book the provision entry for that? My provision of service, section 13, which deals with the time of supply for services. Now, friends, this is all the information which is going to trigger the officer concerned where there is an element of doubt. For evasion is perceived. This is a triggering point where my search or seizure is going to get commenced. Now here they say, look, there is a suppression on various these grounds. Or you are a registered person, you have been participating in the what you call you participate in the tax evasion. Now, if these all things are established, then a person not below a joint commissioner can instruct the proper officer where he also has the reasons to believe that any person is engaged in the business of transportation of goods. Now, all along, they were be talking about the registered person. Now, they are coming to transportation, like the smuggled goods example, which I'm talking. You are the person who used a conveyance to transport the goods. You are the operator of a warehouse. You are the owner of a godown. You have provided the space for storing the goods which have not been subjected to tax. Now, if you have all these things, you believe that any of these things have happened, the proper officer may in writing, the proper officer may in writing call for come for to inspect. The proper officer is coming for an inspection where a place of business which is shown in your registration as a taxable person, or the person where your godown warehouse is being operated. Please understand, where the officer has reason to believe all any of these things have been met with, then this officer will carry a document called search authority. He will get a permission from an officer not below a joint commissioner. He'll come with a paper which is in writing. Joint commissioner is authorized me as a proper officer. Why? For inspection of your premises. So entire aspect starts with the process called inspection. Under section 67, inspection is the point where my process gets commenced. So I'll start my activity of inspection. What will happen? Once I start the process of inspection, I have a reasons to believe that any goods are liable for confiscation. In the process of my inspection, I went to verification. In the process of an inspection carried out, let me do the annotation. In the process of inspection carried out, this proper officer has reasons to believe that goods are liable for confiscation. So why confiscation? He noticed that there are goods on which tax ought to be paid but not paid, or he noticed that there are documents and books, or there are documents and registers which is giving me an evidence that tax ought to be paid but not paid, and which in his opinion, the proper officer has made an opinion that these documents or these goods shall be used for further proceedings under this act. So when he has visited, he found that there are goods on which tax was not paid. He found that there are registers, there are documents which are helpful for me to do my assessment. Then he will make an opinion. This is one side of it. Another side, look at this. There's a place, the goods are secreted in a place. Now, this is an important aspect. Goods are secreted in a place. Now, this is where most of the movies, the CBA office raid or the vigilance people who come for a raid, they have a reason to believe the goods have been kept in a secret place. The documents, the registers are kept in a secret place. You call Kacha records, Pakka records. Pakka records, open for public. Kacha records, it is single entry. All your Kacha records are single entry. Receipt from Gopi, paid to Sham, receipt from Radha, payment to Sita. Now, these are all single entry transactions which are secreted in a place. Then he may, the joint commissioner may authorize in writing any of those proper officers further to search and seize. You search and seize any of those documents or things which are available. Now, this is what they say in relation to your search or seizure. Now, seizure has not started. It is only a search activity which has happened. Now, you have been doing a search activity. You have noticed that there is goods or there is documents which are relevant for your further investigation. then you can seize those documents. This proper officer says that, sir, it is not possible. It is not practically possible to seize any of those goods. Why? Why? The volume is huge, or this area I cannot take the material out. Like you have this one movie called Special 24. There's one Akshay Kumar movie called Special 24. One of the good movie which gives you an insight how this search and seizure operations do conduct. They go to a one particular location. It's very impossible to carry the goods out of a particular location. They take the help of income tax people with the special protection of a police, where the goods or the documents are taken from a premises. Now, the proper officer feels that practically it is not possible to seize those goods. Then the proper officer will lock that particular area. He says, without my permission, you cannot take the goods out of that particular premises. Or he feels, I need to take some documents, I need to seize some books of accounts or documents, then he can retain those documents for his assessment purpose, for further proceedings purpose. Further, the documents are things which are seized under the above provision, which are produced by the taxable person and which are not being relied upon for issuance of a notice. That means to say, when the proper officer formulated, when he has come to a conclusion, then he will issue a notice. When he is issuing a notice, the goods which you have seized, the documents which you have seized, those does not reveal additional tax evasion. That does not reveal that there was a tax ought to be paid but not paid. Then those documents which were collected should be returned back to that person within a period of not exceeding 30 days. That means everything is proper. The proper officer failed to establish that there is a evasion, failed to establish that there was a tax evasion or fraudulent activity. Within a period of 30 days, those goods or those documents should be given back to the assessee concerned. That is what this provision says. Next. Important aspect, power to seal or power to break. Now, this is one area where majority of the people have, like what we watch in movies, they come with a full force to reveal this information. Now, let me just come back to my question window to see any questions are there. Venkat says, for appointment or recommendation GST special audit by proper officer, any membership with institute is required in the guidelines for recommendation. Venkat is preparing his ground plan to get engaged with the department. Yes, Venkat. Venkat has asked a fantastic question. What he says, sir, if I want to get enrolled with the commissioner or the government, is there any permission or guidelines or recommendations given? Generally, Venkat, this comes as a special practice. This is a special activity where government calls for a notification. Under Central Excise Law, under Central Excise Service Act, government generally calls for empanelment of auditors. They say the firm of chartered accountants registered, having 10 years of experience, having at least 3 partners, having expertise in the area of indirect taxation, can do the empanelment. They will call for audit, they'll call for interview, they'll check your application. What is your entitlement? What is your exposure? What is your experience? How many auditors are there? How many partners are there? What is your team size? Are you capable for doing this audit? Based on various parameters, they will do the empanelment. So Venkat, be ready. The moment you get your certificate of qualification, get into this empanelment. Go as a team. If you go as a proprietary concern, probably they may not entertain you. You should be a firm so that you can showcase your capability. You can showcase your team size. Next, Kirtana. So while preparing GST 9, there is an excess tax paid as compared to 3B. Is the auditor specifically mentioned in 9C as regards to refund of tax? Yes, Kirtana. If there is any excess payment of tax as an auditor, I need to substantiate, I need to do the reconciliation. As an auditor, when I say, look, as per books of accounts, this is a tax payable. There is an auto-populated tax in my table 9 of GST and 9C. You will bring a comment in table 10 of GST and 9C stating that this assessee in that particular month has paid so much of excess tax ought to be not to be paid. So he has been recommended to file a refund application. Kirtana, yes, you as a professional have to make a recommendation in your 9C. Further, Kirtana says, in Form 26 says, why GST 3B turnover is reflected, not GSTR 1, as GSTR 3B is only the payment of tax form rather than GSTR 1 is actual outward supply. Kirtana, I do admit your point. Now, ideally, GSTR 1, GSTR 3B, my turnover should reconcile at any given point of time. Now, government says, since you have paid your tax through GSTR 3B, I believe, who income tax department, whatever turnover you have considered for the payment of tax, that is the turnover I'm going to populate in my Form 26 years. Ideally, 100% of the cases, my GSTR1 and GSTR3B should match. Now, one reason I would call for why GSTR1 is not picked up, for the simple reason, there is an amendment of turnover 6 months from the end of the relevant financial year. That could be one reason, if at all. If the government extends that period of 6 months for 1 year, why GSTR1 will not be picked up for my Form 26 AS? Ambika says, what is the difference between inspection? Now, I think, Ambika, your question is incomplete, ma. Inspection, if you can complete your question, I can throw some light on your question. I'll come back to my presentation. Power to seal or break. Now, this is the most important provision where an officer who comes for search, for inspection, this officer has a power to seal or break. Power to seal. What is the power to seal? Now, this is a place where they say, like your special 24 or 26. 26. I think special 26. Please correct me. I'm not familiar with the movie name. They say power to seal or power to break. Sir, I'm not in a position to confiscate money. I can take the goods from here. It's highly impossible. Given the nature of the goods, given the nature of volume of the place, I put a seal. The moment I put a seal, no one is authorized to break the seal unless I, as a proper officer, give a permission to do so. Or break, open the door of any premises, break open any almirah, electronic device, box, receptacle in which any goods, accounts, registers, or documents. Look at the language they have used. The place where goods are stored, the place where accounts, my kacha accounts are stored, place where my registers are stored, say fixed deposit in Swiss bank, money given to someone on lending basis, documents, property documents or any other documents. Now, these are all the papers which are kept in a safe custody, which is in an almari, which is in a seal, where the person has a reason to have a suspicion where there is a concealment. In that case, if the registered person denied me to open those things, I have a right to break those particular things. So your role as a professional, when you are guiding the assessee in case of search and seizure, most of the time, I recommend abstain, be away from that search and seizure. Your role is a professional to guide. Your role is not to be party to the search and seizure. Your role is not a party to culprit, to be a part of that particular business activity. Please draw a line as a professional. What is your business of advisory? What is your business of professionalism? What is your responsibility? Client can say, sir, everything is done by the auditor. Everything is guided by the auditor. I don't know anything. My returns are filed by the auditor. In that case, you showcase your audit working papers to say, I, as an auditor, I have supported the assessee in filing the returns. Look, this is a mail where the data has come for me to filing the returns. I have not abstracted from the books. Assessee, he has sent me the data. I relied on that data, and that data I have copied into the returns. I have not prepared, I have not assisted, I have not designed any of this fraudulent activity. To the extent possible, be away from this search and seizure. Next, making availability of a copy. In the process of this search and seizure, where documents are seized, the goods are seized, your documents are taken for investigation, then the assessee has a right to request for a copy of those documents. I repeat, the registered person can request the proper officer, kindly give me a copy so that whatever decision you're going to take, I can examine the genuineness of these documents. I can check the transactions of these documents which you're going to bring into your report. I can produce these documents to my advocate, to my chartered accountant to help me in further assessment proceedings. Now, this may be accepted by the proper officer. With his special officer, he may give a copy of those documents. However, this proper officer says there is a prejudicial activity of this investigation. It may tarnish, it may take a right of my investigation. Then he may not give a documents of these things to the assessee. This is the point where I draw your attention as a professional. When he has an opinion to believe that there is a possibility to prejudice, there's a possibility to defeat the purpose of audit when the copies are made available to the assessee, that particular reason should be demonstrated, should be explained, should be convinced to the magistrate, to the court of law. If the proper officer says, my lord, I believe that there is a possibility to fraud, to change the facts. No, you cannot be an opinion. You have to demonstrate. So, my lord, if I give this particular copy, they may prepare a bank statement, they may prepare a financials in suitable manner. Now, he should demonstrate with the reasons. He cannot just say in the wind, in the vacuum, that there is a possibility to prejudice the investigation. So, friends, you can guide that a copy of such documents can be obtained by this registered person, which will help the chartered accountant to frame an opinion whether actually there is a fraud or not. Release of goods seized. Now, these goods which have been seized can be released on a provisional basis where the tax ascertained has been paid on a provisional basis, or the actual tax to be paid has been paid along with tax, interest, and penalty. Now, Badmash Company, there's one movie called Badmash Company. I wouldn't say 100% correlatable, but that is one another movie which again teaches how smuggled goods cannot be called as a smuggled goods. You do a tax planning, you get a documents by way of proper payment of tax. This provision says when the goods are seized, you make the payment of tax on a provisional basis if the officer is permitting me to pay such tax, or I pay the entire tax what is payable on that along with interest and penalty. Then I can take the goods out of my no, from the officer concerned. No. Sir, the officer has come. Officer did the search activity. After doing the search activity, he felt that there is a fraud or concealment of facts. He did the seizure of goods. He did the seizure of my documents. This provision says when you do this search and seizure, a notice has to be given within a period of 6 months. So why is that 6 months required? This officer is trying to ascertain. This officer is trying to ascertain the value of goods, trying to ascertain the source of transaction. Now he's trying to identify who are all the parties involved in this particular seizure activity. I would draw your attention to this particular slide. Looks very simple. When you read as English, so why is it taking 6 months to issue a notice? I'll tell you the hard work which goes in by the government officer. This government officer, Mane, you would have seen this movie called Urvi. There's a movie called Urvi where there is a military operation done. The government officer goes in a disguise to a particular nation. He tries to gather the data, gather the information. Similarly, these vigilance officers, they do a lot of homework on the field work. These guys travel in a bus, local bus. These guys walk with a simple dress as if they are a local, a small time accountant They'll go with a small bag to talk to the security fellow, to talk to the housekeeping fellow. They go to talk to the accountant. They try to gather information from the surroundings. If there is a business activity being conducted, they try to talk to the lorry driver. They will spend some time in investigating who are all the parties involved in this particular activity before they frame an opinion that a notice to be given to this X, this Y, this Z. These are all the parties who are party to this particular culprit activity. That's why law says you take your time, but not more than 6 months. From the date of seizure, you make your opinion and issue a notice for the purpose of that seizure that there is a tax evasion. The goods which you have taken, you have to issue a notice. Failing which, whatever goods you have taken, you have to return back to the assessee concerned. Provided that that period of 6 months, if I show a reasonable cause, can be extended for a further period of 6 months. Means within a year, I have to frame an opinion to find out who are all the culprits involved in this. Friends, if like I don't you if you see like there's a provision called summons. I tell you how much of field work goes in terms of formulating a opinion. Issuance of a show cause notice, every allegation, there will be a bunch of papers they collate, they take on record, and then they issue. When I come to summons, I'll explain this background. Next, disposal. When there is a search seizure of goods, when you feel these are perishable, these are all hazardous material, by way of a notification, they call it for what you call they dispose of those goods by virtue of a notification. Then inventory. The duty of a proper officer. Now you recollect there was a news. I think after Corona, somewhere in the month of June, in Maharashtra, in a customs office, 300 kgs of gold was seized, which was a public news. Out of 300 kgs of gold which was seized, within a week's time, they have reported that 30 kgs of gold gone missing. There was a news that a gold was seized for 300 kgs. Of that, 30 kgs gone missing. Now, that is the reason they say whenever there is a seizure, you maintain an inventory. Like, what is the dimension? Is it a chain? Is it a what you call gold bar? Is it a pendant? Is it a pendant? Is it a particular ornament? What exactly is that you have seized? Maintain an inventory of that particular goods, whichever has been seized. That is what they expect the officer to do. Then, applicability of criminal code of criminal procedures. This is one fantastic provision. We don't read law in depth, but this is one provision which is in depth, which is borrowed from my CPC provisions. What they say, any provisions applicable for CPC relating to search seizure shall, so far in such a search and seizure conducted under this law, is equivalently applicable, but for a couple of provisions where my term of magistrate shall be replaced by commissioner. Conduction, like when I do a search and seizure, can I do a search and seizure activity after late night? Can I do a search and seizure even after the working hours? Like say I started 10 a.m. Can I go till 10 p.m.? My CPC provisions. Till I come to a conclusion, till my search, I, as a proper officer, does not believe has been completed intact. There's one more movie, I don't recollect the name. This Bihar, there is a team of police goes for a raid in a politician's house. They stay in that house. Over a night, they do conduct that search. Like family members does not reveal where all that particular gold jewelry documents have been stored. Over a period of 2-3 nights, they recover that thing. Now, can I do a search and seizure? Answer is a big yes. Income tax raid. I don't recollect the movie name, but when I apply my CPC provisions, you have been permitted. When you feel the moment you come out of the premises, there is a possibility to defeat the evidence. You conduct your search activity with the protection of police, with the lady inspector, lady constable, to ensure that there is utmost no secrecy provided. Again, there is if the person wants to sleep, he will be permitted. He will not be disturbed. But you do your activity of search and seizure. This is what my CPC provisions talks about: search and seizure. Seizure of accounts records and other records. This provision says wherever there is a reason to believe that the law has evaded or there was a fraudulent activity conducted, you have a right to seize the accounts or registers of that particular person, and you give a receipt. What all documents we call panchnama. We call panchnama. Wherever there is a search and seizure, the officer concerned has to give a panchnama, which gives a detailed list. Look, I have verified these documents. These documents have seized accounts, registers, documents. Your entire details have to be given in a written statement saying that these details have been taken by the proper officer. And proper officer, this is one another provision under section 67, where commissioner will appoint or will authorize an officer who can make a purchase of goods or services. That proper officer may appoint in turn another officer, right? Now, understand carefully. Now, this is one area where I've been telling a lot of field work is done by the intelligence, vigilance, two teams, vigilance, intelligence. Intelligence, the team who does this, what I can say, the team who suspiciously say, who identifies movement of vehicle, suspicious vehicle, identify a person in customs, suspicious, intelligence, vigilance, they have a first-hand information through the various resources. We call kabri. In movies, we heard this term called kabri, the person who gives a transparency information, who gives a secrecy information to the proper officer. Now, this provision says commissioner has given a authority to a person to appoint a proper officer. The proper officer will appoint a person. What is his job? He'll go to a shop, he'll buy the material, and this person will see when the fellow is selling the goods, is he giving a tax invoice? Is he giving me a bill of supply? After some point in time, this person goes back to the same shop, he gives back that material. When I give back material, is the proper officer paying me that money along with the tax? Now, this is a activity done by the vigilance team where they want, before they do inspection, search and seizure, they try to obtain an evidence. I purchased the goods. Look, I have given a card, I have given cash. When I give cash, are you giving a check? Are you giving a bill, or you're not giving a bill? If you're not giving a bill, that itself is an evidence which can be brought in for the purpose of your search and seizure activity. This is all to do with my section 67. Section 68. Before I come to this, let me see if there are any further doubts. Okay. Between inspection, Ambika, again, your question is incomplete, ma'am. You asked search between inspection and inspection. Now, inspection is one thing your question is coming forth to. And Ambika has one question. Can the search be conducted at the residence of a registered person? Yes, provided there is a reason to believe, provided there is a evidence to believe that the documents, the registers of a registered person ought to be maintained at the principal place of business, have been maintained at the registered premises. Now, please be careful. Auditor's office can also be searched and seized. Remember, auditor's office can also be searched and seized, where if the assessee says, sir, my sales register, my purchase register, my accounts is not with me, my accounts is maintained by the auditor. If you become the slave of the assessee, you don't maintain a professional relation, you may be party to the crime. If the assessee says, my entire sales and purchases, I don't have anything, auditor is taking care because he's an accountant for me. You have to say, Baba, I am doing accounting job because of this engagement letter. I am not a custodian. Please put it in engagement letter. You are the responsible person. This have been brought only for the purpose of accounting and to give back. I am no way a custodian. If you have your engagement letter very clear, you can show to the proper officer, say that, please don't step in. It is not additional place of business. You cannot do a search and seizure over here. That is how you draw a line between your relation with assessee and a client. In answer to your question, Ambika, yes, if there is evidence to prove that the documents are kept in the house of a registered person, even that can be searched and raided. Next is your inspection. This provision of section 68 is linked with my e-way bill. We have read the provisions of e-way bill where any vehicle which is carrying goods, any vehicle which is carrying a consignment, that should have set of documents which are required to be. If a movement of vehicle is there, that vehicle, based on the e-way-bill provisions, it should have e-way-bill, tax invoice, bill of supply, or a delivery journal. The proper officer who has verified these documents, it is called interception. He stopped a vehicle. Officer has a right to intercept a vehicle for the purpose of e-way-bill verification, for the purpose of verification of tax invoice or a bill of supply. Power to arrest. Now, this is one important provision. Don't worry from examination point of view. When I come to offense and penalty, there is one separate chapter called offense and penalty. I'll discuss in detail this section 132. As of now, please understand what do you mean by power to arrest. When officer will invoke this power to arrest, where he says, commissioner, don't treat any proper officer, only a commissioner. Commissioner has reasons to believe that any registered person, any person has committed an offense in relation to section 132. I would recommend, don't read for your exam, read for your career, read for your professional career. When you join a company as a CEO, as a CFO, as a managing director, as a director, as a professional, as a consultant, a must of read of 132 where you will protect your interest in the company as an individual, as a professional. For that reason, I would say read 132 once. My provisions of section 69 says, if there is a supply of goods or services without an invoice or in violation of a GST law, issues a bill without supply of goods, issues a bill without supplying of a service. Now, point number one, I am selling the goods or services, no invoice. Point number two, I am giving a bill without actual goods or without actual services. This is my violation. Point number C, I am taking an input tax credit in relation to point number B, where no goods or services are there. I am taking a credit of a bill. Point number B, point number C, sham transactions. I call window dressing. I gave an example called entity A, entity B, entity C. Entity A, manufacturer, supplier of steel. Entity C, works contractor, who is into construction, laying of roads. A and C are known parties or related parties. Now, A supplied the goods to C. C has to make a payment to A. Now, there is a bank, bank borrowing, working capital management. In between A and C, B was a new entity which was floated for the purpose of your bill discounting. B will discount bill of C, A will discount bill of B. Now, A is getting a bill discounting money from banker. B is also getting bill discounting money from a banker. Now, look at this. A got 30 lakhs here, B got 30 lakhs here. Indirectly, 60 lakhs was pooled for one transaction. Now, you are creating a list of sham transactions, clause B, clause C. Friends, read carefully and understand these provisions as a prudent chartered accountant. Please don't blindly certify any financials. Don't rely on any transactions before you issue a certificate. Ensure you do a KYC before you certify. Reason, if you certify without knowing the SSC, you will also be called as a party. Now, next slide is there, where a professional also be called as a party to that particular transaction who are supported in that particular allegation. Knowing that B is a dummy, shallow company, you happen to be an auditor who certified, you also will be held equal responsible for this power to arrest. Name will be there in the Panchnama. Collects any amounts but fails to pay the tax. He has collected the money but not paid to the government. Then this is a punishable offense under section 132. If you have committed any of those four offenses where the tax evasion is exceeding 500 lakhs, exceeding 5 crores, then an imprisonment of a term may extend up to 5 years. So if your tax evasion is 500 crores, if your tax evasion is up to a sum of rupees exceeds 500 lakhs, you can be put into jail for a period of 5 years with a fine. If the tax evasion is above 200 lakhs, but less than that 500 lakhs, then an imprisonment with a term which may extend up to 3 years, So if the evasion is more than 5 crores, 5 years is imprisonment. If the evasion is more than 2 crores, but less than 5 crores, then 3 years is imprisonment. This is a serious repercussion of conducting of a fraudulent activity. So be very, very careful. This slide which says, if the offense is a punishable offense, I repeat, if the offense is a punishable offense, where the assessee has been convicted for that particular offense, then this particular offense he has repeated again. Once he has been punished, he didn't change. He is committed the same imprisonment, the same offense once again. Then he shall be put to behind the bars for a further period of 5 years. So first time offense, 5 years or 3 years, 5 years or 3 years. Second time you do the same offense, then straight away the imprisonment for a period of 5 years. The commissioner may, by order, authorize any officer of central tax to arrest such person. So my arrest provision comes where any of those four provisions under section 132. Section 132 is a offense where this is called as a cognizable non-bailable. There are a couple of offenses which are called cognizable and non-bailable. I'll draw your attention to this term called cognizable and non-bailable. Means the section 132 has identified, don't worry now, I'll explain in detail. List of offenses: cognizable, very serious; non-bailable, no bail at all. Now, this is one serious offense which we need to keep in mind when we are advising an SSC, when we are supporting an SSC, when we are assisting an SSC in terms of their compliance. So if there is an offense under section 132, which is a cognizable and non-bailable, then once the officer arrests the person, then that person shall be produced before a magistrate within 24 hours. This we have come across a few scenarios. This is a black mark. This is a taint mark for lifetime in bank, in the GST department, in the society at large. So I would recommend be very alert, know your customer before advising your customer. What if my offense is not a cognizable, it is a bailable offense? They say, whenever there is an offense, like you have those A, B, C, D, those four offenses, as per section 132, this is non-cognizable, not serious. It is an offense, not serious, but bailable. Then they say you produce before magistrate, and if the bail is granted, you release that person on a bail. If the bail is rejected, you tend to hold that person in your custody. That is what they say in relation to section 69. So as of now, please keep in mind, there are four offenses under section 132. If any of those four offenses are done, based on the volume of offense, 5 crore and above, 5 years imprisonment; 2 crore up to 5 crore, 3 years offense, 3 years imprisonment. If the offense is repeated once again, straight away 5 years imprisonment. Examination, ancillary question: explain the provisions of arrest under GST law. Don't worry, no need to buy heart. Understand the concept, understand these provisions. Section 132, keep in the back of memory. Section 132, there are four mechanisms. You supplied the goods or services without invoice. You issued an invoice without supply of goods or services. You have accounted that purchase without receipt of goods or services. You are party to any of those offenses. Then this is called offense. Value exceeding 5 crore, exceeding 2 crore. Cognizable and non-bailable, non-cognizable, bailable. This is what we need to understand from section 69. Quickly, I'll move on to my section 70. This is one provision which I was telling, where 6 months time limit, what I have drawing, wherever the search and seizure, they have given 6 months to issue a notice. This is one powerful provision under GST law called summons. People who have heard this term called summons, I'll give you a background and how it works. This term summons has been carved out from my CPC provisions. Code of Criminal Procedures, From there, they have imported that CPC provisions called summons. Wherever there is a proper officer who believes, like when he is doing a field study, he has gathered the information through a transporter, through the security fellow, through that particular truck driver, through that warehouse operator, through that housekeeping. When he was asking, have you been paid salary? Are you getting salary? I have my brother-in-law. Can I put into the security post? Will he pay salary promptly? Will he pay incentive? Will he pay bonus? When he is trying to gather information. Once he has gathered information, then use this section 70 as a Vajrayuda to call for that person, saying that, look, I'm summoning you to come and represent on at my place to provide some evidence, to provide some information. This fellow is duty bound to come and appear. Reason: this is a provision under my code of civil procedure, where if I don't abide, the criminal proceedings can be instigated on me as per my CPC provisions. So as per CPC provisions, wherever you have been called for, at a particular point in time, you are supposed to come for providing a evidence. Like in court of law, you see, they say, Bhagavad Gita के ऊपर हाथ रख के भगवान को साक्षी मान के I swear in the name of God, whatever I provide, whatever I communicate, it's all true and correct to the best of my knowledge. You are giving a statement to the best of your knowledge. If anything goes for wrong, you will be you'll be put behind the bars because you have failed to provide the information, or knowingly you have given a false information. This is the mechanism to call for information from a person where the officer believes that he has evidence to provide a document for the purpose of my search and seizure, or to concluding my search operations. Then finally, access to premises. A person not below the cadre of a joint commissioner, he will authorize a proper officer to visit a premises. Why? To verify the books of accounts, to verify the documents and registers, to verify what all inventory is maintained, whether it is good enough for me to comply with the payment of taxes. This is what happens in case of access to premises. When there is access to premises, this particular proper officer, whatever information was called for, that particular proper information will be made available to. Now, when an information was called for, the proper officer has right to take the information or details from that particular premises. So what he can verify? He will verify the records which are maintained. He will verify the trial balance. He will give the statement of annual financial statements. He'll also call for cost audit report, income tax report, and other relevant information for what? For scrutiny or for audit purpose. This information will be given to a chartered accountant or cost accountant for his particular special audit purpose. This is my special provisions in relation to access to business premises. Finally, we'll come to the last slide of our discussion called officers to assist proper officers. We have discussed all these provisions till now called, first it started with assessment, reassessment. From there, we went on to a provision called best judgment assessment. From there, we went on to provisional assessment. From there, we went on to this what you call scrutiny assessment. From there, we came on to search and seizure, audit. From audit, special audit. From special audit, search, inspection. From there, seizure. From there, your confiscation. Now, all these are the provisions. Which are important for us to see how the officer is taking the custody of these documents. In this process, this proper officer alone cannot do everything. This proper officer has to be assisted by the local police, local village officer, or the other officers which are notified by the government in this regard. With this, we come to the end of today's discussion. As I promised to you, don't read this particular chapter only for your examination purpose. Read this chapter, how it will give a valuation to me as a business person as a whole, as a professional as a whole. So friends, with this, we come to the end of today's discussion. Read through the provisions for your understanding purpose. Examination, there are two possible questions which I have highlighted to you already. And we will meet again back on this Thursday, 11th, to discuss further on other topics. Till then, good night, goodbye. See you all. Jay?